Round 5 of the FIA GT Championship. We're exclusively live on Mettle Motors this afternoon for the next 2.5 hours, and if you saw qualifying with us yesterday afternoon, then you'll already know we're in Oschersleben in Germany, and if you can't find it on Google Earth, you're not looking hard enough. It's close to Magdeburg, it's midway between Hanover and Berlin, and both of them are a couple of hours drive away from here. We're much closer to the start of this race. We saw yesterday Andrew Gt2 get GT2 pole, and we saw Antony get an absolutely spectacular GT1 pole, and with luck, before he gets in the car, we can speak to him now. And Law, our pit lane interviewer, who'll be bringing us updates throughout the course of this race, should have him nailed at the moment, and there she is.
Antony, starting from the pole position, you must be pretty confident for this race.
Yeah, you know, it's a good thing here on this track, because the first corner is very tight, and I think it will be very dangerous if you start in the middle of the pack. But we don't know, you know, it's quite a lot warmer than the other days. So I hope the setup stays as good as it was the first days, and then it looks good.
Thank you, have a nice race.
Well, you can't tell from that Antony Kumpen is a very cheerful chappy. What he's talking about is the Oschersleben circuit, fairly newish, built in 1997, created in a bowl dug out of the flat ground around here, which keeps the noise down for the locals, although there aren't too many of them, and it means spectators can look down at the circuit and they can see massive amounts of it from almost any vantage point. The Championship was the first international event here in 1998. This place has a special significance for this series. The Maserati MC12 took its first ever series win here in 2004. It's the only GT1 car here today with a history of race wins on this circuit. Michael Bartels has won the last 2 races and desperately wants to make this a hat-trick today. But based on qualifying yesterday, which we'll see in detail in a moment, based on that, Graham, it's long odds, isn't it?
Yes, it's tricky for them, and yet this morning in the warm-up, which doesn't really necessarily tell us anything representative about what's going to happen in the race, but if it did, the top 3 cars, including Michael Bartels' number 1 Maserati, were covered by less than 1/10 of a second.
Qualifying is one thing, racing is another thing. We've said it so many times, and warm-up is something else again, right?
Oh yeah, warm-up is there for a number of reasons. It's there to allow the teams to run a final check through on the systems on the car. It's there to allow the renter drivers to have a look at their car. No renter drivers here though. Number 63 is the GT2 pole sitting car of Andrew Gt2 and Chris Niarchos. Andrew it will be who takes the car away at the start of the race, and we're going to try to have a word with him as well, with Anne again.
You're promising us quite a good race today.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously we qualify pole position, and all the cars are very, very close together, so hopefully, yeah, it'll be quite a close race.
So what about the strategy?
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, we have some ideas for the race, and we'll see if they play out in our favour.
Thank you, good race.
Well, she mentioned strategy there. Andrew Gt2 was staying in our hotel last night. He wasn't in the bar, not drinking any beer because he's a racing driver, obviously. They've hidden him away now. But he did say they've got an idea for strategy here.
Yes, and Stuart Roden was smiling broadly when I asked him about that this morning.
I hate it when he does that.
He said, well, just watch and see, he said. So, yeah, something a little bit different is going to happen, which will either catapult them to the very front of the field in GT2, or he said it could be a complete disaster. So we shall see.
Well, these are the cars they're trying to beat, of course. 50-51, they're our championship leaders. AF Corsa has dominated this series since the word go in Zhuhai, and they're on for their championship. As we were saying, it's long odds on Michael Bartels retaining his driver's championship. He missed 2 crucial rounds of this series because of illness. He had a minor operation and had to watch from the sidelines. He was back last time at Monza when we raced in Italy, but of course he wasn't driving in Silverstone or in Bucharest. This visit to Oschersleben in the centre of Germany brings us to the halfway point of a season that started in China 5 months ago. And since then we've been on a tour of Europe's classic racetracks. We still have 5 more to go until we reach Zolder in October to end the season. 2 weekends ago we were at historic Monza. We had an Aston Martin in pole position, but it was Corvette leading after turn 1. Mike Hazeman's mugged Carl Wendlinger in Rettifilio, but 3 corners later it was Corvette in the gravel, and the lead had changed hands again. With Maserati's second and third, the scene was set for a long and close battle that seemed to have been defused here when Ryan Sharp spun at the critical moment, trying to regain the lead after the first pit stops. He recovered from that, he made up the lost time, so in the end it came down to a late final stop from the leading Aston Martin. Jet Alliance had been rehearsing this moment, and they put Carl Wendlinger back on track ahead of Thomas Biaggi with 20 minutes to go, but the Italian's refusal to accept defeat led to a trip through the Parabolica gravel, and that was the matter settled. Carl Wendlinger took Aston Martin's first checkered flag of the season. The GT2 runners knew in advance that this high-speed circuit would suit the Ferraris perfectly, and so it was. It was all about the Italian maker in GT2 qualifying, and then the story was borne out in racing as well. Poleman Paolo Roberti led a trio of 430s off the line, but the order soon changed, and it was AF Corsa who took control of the race. It was no fun at all for Porsche this Italian weekend. Technical problems saw an end to the challenge of Collard and Malicelli at half distance, but not all the Ferrari teams enjoyed an untroubled day either. But it went like clockwork for AF Corsa. With 3 wins already under their belt, the team cruised to win number 4, though with the points leaders Muller and Verlander loaded with ballast and unable to match the pace of Bruno and Ortelli in 51, we had a new winner for the first time this year. Here we are then at Oschersleben. It could hardly be more different to Monza. It's packed into a bowl that makes great viewing for the spectators, as we say, and for us here on TV too. But it's not easy for the racers, and there are only a few obvious places for overtaking. On the back half of the circuit, the GT2 cars will be pretty much on the pace of the GT1s. So watch out for some desperate moves in the race if the right drivers get frustrated by the queuing. We have seen some of that already, or a hint of it, haven't we not?
Yes, a little bit of that going on in some of the support races before today's main event, which is coming up now, and just watching the 51 AF Corsa car on its way around the track, and they really do look very fine. This is qualifying, looking back at from the other day, the 2 AF Corsa cars heading things out. Richard?
Yeah, running with some more than 60 kilos of success penalty ballast on board on a circuit he's never seen before. Jimmy Bruni was 3rd quickest, hardly more than a tenth off the pace of the championship leader in number 50, but it was another brilliant performance from Dirk Muller, but he couldn't match this man. Andrew Cicaldi put Scuderia Ecos back on the map after a 5-race absence, and a welcome return to form for him, and a welcome return to pole position as well. GT1's top 3 is unexpectedly a Maserati-free zone. Michael Bartels' hopes of a 3rd successive win seemed remote. After 3rd place in qualifying went to the Monza winners. Carl Wendlinger looked fast on track, and he certainly was. Faster still, but looking impressively composed and well balanced, Graham and I thought, local hero Stefan Bucher. Lamborghini once again showing it's got the speed and, most importantly here, the agility to run at the front. But then, disaster at the end of his first hot lap. Almost sidelined Antony Kumpen. That second swipe took the car onto the grass within centimetres of the wall, but the team scraped the grass off. He came straight back out with a monster lap that was 7/10 of a second clear of anyone else on track. It was never going to be bettered, and as you've seen, he starts from pole position here today. And that's him on the right-hand side there, lining up behind the pace car. This is our grid as you look at it, and for once, Graham, no changes.
No, everybody lines up where they qualified, which is great. No penalties, no fouls, no changes of engines, no changes of tyres, because the cars have to start the race on the tyres on which they qualified, at least 3 out of the 4. So if they should damage those tyres in qualifying, then they have the option to change them, but if they do that, they start at the back. And with traffic and passing, as you said, Richard, being a bit of a difficulty on this tight Oschersleben circuit, nobody wants to give up track position early on.
Absolutely. Everybody who's qualified near the front is delighted with it. Everybody who's qualified near the back is very unhappy about it. It is a tremendous recipe for us, though, as spectators, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely fabulous. We've got a real prospect as the pace car rolls off for their first warm-up lap. The prospect for us now is for a really tight race, and strategy will be all important here. There are teams hoping to get through, certainly in the GT2 field, on the same set of tyres throughout the race. So let's see if they can manage that.
Let's see if they can manage that. It's hot and sunny in Germany. It's hot and sunny in the UK. We'll take a quick break now. We'll be back exclusively live on Mettle Motors with round 5 of the FIA GT Championship in Germany. Oh. The fastest sighting lap in GT history. And you've missed the start, and as you can see, Carl Wendlinger, one of the fast men, was in the gravel trap at turn 1 pretty much as we predicted. Poleman Antony Kumpen's got away with it clean. He's got Stefan Bucher behind him in the Lamborghini, and then that's Robert Lechner in the other Jet Alliance Aston Martin. Then it's Maserati time through the midfield, but Carl Wendlinger, the big loser, in fact the only loser as far as I can see at the moment, in the first corner.
Yes,
and
pretty much plumb last. Everyone making their way round past him without contact, happily. But a big moment in the very first corner. It was something we feared. They've reprofiled this first corner of the lap since we were here last year, and it's now a very sharp left and right as we see a slow 36 Jet Alliance car as well along the back straight there, coming through the shell corner for the first time, and they'll be up the hill. There's quite a steep hill there too, which the camera flattens, but coming through second time past us, first time racing, and it's a very tight 1, 2, 3, and Antony Kumpen heads off into the middle distance with Stefan Bucher in close attendance and Christian Montanari in third. So it's Corvette, Lamborghini, Maserati.
And then it's Aston Martin and Maserati. And I think we said Carl Wendlinger was the only big loser, but there was somebody else on the infield. Now I thought it was one of the BMS Scuderia Italia cars, but we'll have a look in a moment because this is the start as we saw it, but you didn't. Wendlinger's on the right of your picture now. The Kumpen is leading us down. Wendlinger is right there. He's got his teammate behind him, and it's the Maserati, the number 1 Maserati that locked up, and there is well, I couldn't see anything really terribly wrong with the 36 car, and it's the Scuderia play team Maserati that looked to be in the worst trouble there. But as you can see, Carl Wendlinger paid the price there heavily.
Yeah, the two play team cars currently running 5th and 6th, so not being too badly held back. But Robert Lechner rather in the number 36. The Jet Alliance second string entry has come straight into pit lane at the end of that first lap, Richard.
Graham showing his age there. Walter Lechner's daddy, isn't he?
He is indeed.
Walter Lechner Jr. is daddy, yes. But anyway, let's have a look. It's Kumpen, Bucher, Montanari and Jamie Davis, number 23. So although I thought one of the green Aston Martins was in the gravel, and I'm still sure there was one, seemed to have come out of it well, but everybody else who took a trip through the gravel has got a bit of a problem on their hands. Have they got bits of gravel stuck to their tyres? Have they got gravel up inside the brake ducts, inside the engine? What is going on? All those people who had a bouncy ride and haven't come in to have it checked out have got a little bit of thinking to do. But look at the state of the gap behind the leaders. Just look at that huge amount of clear air behind about top 6, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, top 6 or 7, then there's a 5-second break back to, in fact, Sean Edwards, the first of the GT2 runners in 8th place overall.
Now that's a good start for Sean Edwards,
that's
isn't
great.
it? Oh, that's all over for Robert Lechner as well.
Well, it may just be that they want to work on the car with more than the maximum 4 people they're allowed to use on the pit apron. So there is sometimes a good reason to push a car back into the garage. As we concentrate on the number 2 car, Christian Montanari currently in 3rd. Stefan Bucher ahead of him, set fastest lap of the race last time round on a 1:26.8 in his pursuit of Antony Kumpen, who still holds the lead in the black and green Corvette C5R, the older model of the 2 Corvettes racing here today.
It sounded wicked in the pit lane though, all through free practice yesterday. If you stood next to that car, when it came and went, it didn't sound like last year's car, it sounded like tomorrow's. It's very sharp.
Absolutely.
And here's our GT2 leader. What a good start that was for Sean Edwards. In fact, what a good start it was for both of them, because Zani's right behind him.
And good qualifying too. So against the odds, it's Porsche at the head of the GT2 field, with Jimmy Bruni in 51, the best placed of the Ferrari contingent, with Manuel Collard in 4th. Now, where we have to ask, has there's Dirk Muller's appeared in 10th place. So Edwards, Zani, and then Muller and Bruni, the 2 AF Corsa cars together. Where are the 2 Scuderia Cost cars?
Not on our first timing screen, which is unusual. And we've got Lechner in the pits, and we've got 62 and 63 both
holding up the rest of the field.
Yes, both right down the back of the field. So we're looking at 50, the championship leader in GT2, and the 2 AF Corsa cars there and the one behind it are the ones that have dominated this series. They're in championship order there, and they shouldn't be, because that's the reverse of the way they qualified, and it's the reverse of the way they're ballasted as well, although there's not a huge difference between them. But nevertheless, they are looking better than they ought to, and the Porsches are looking much better than they ought to. Although I've got to say, Porsches historically have done well here, but against the 360, not the 430.
Yep, absolutely on board with Emmanuel Collard in the Porsche there, and looking at the business end of the car ahead of him. It's not been happy hunting for the Porsches this season. Ferrari really have had the whip hand right the way through.
On the other hand, I just bumped into a very Porsche-looking person in the control tower on my way up to our commentary box. Very familiar face. Looked like a director of motorsport to me.
A former director of motorsport.
Indeed, yes.
Enzinger.
That's the fellow.
Yeah, retired and yes, came back and retired and came back.
He's retired. It's not a factory team. He's just looking around. He was in deep discussions with timing and all kinds of other people here. So he's probably just keeping his hand in.
Okay, we're getting a notice on our timing screens that the number 8 Lamborghini, the sister car to Stefan Bucher's second place car, has lost some of its bodywork out on the circuit at turn 4. So we'll keep an eye out for that. They've really not had a happy time in the number 8 car. Peter Cox and Jos Menton have really been struggling. Not
necessarily a tragedy though, Graham, because in yesterday's ADAC GT3 race here, we saw a Lamborghini in the hands of Wolfgang Kaufmann, probably well known to fans of sports car racing, trailing around with half the bodywork flapping in the breeze, and he soon got the hang of that, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, it made for some very interesting handling until he did understand what was going on, but once he knew, he worked his way around it very quickly.
Absolutely, set some of his fastest sector times afterwards with an air brake dangling off the left-hand side of the car. So although it has bodywork flapping, that needn't necessarily be an issue, but what's underneath the bodywork damage as he hit something harder would be the question.
Possibly had an onboard there from the Dirk Muller car, number 50 AF Corsa, chasing down the two Porsches ahead of him, and there is Collard as we've got a car making up places behind. That is one of the Lamborghinis.
Bonnet missing, I think that's number 8, and there's a big hole where the front should be. So what's flown away is the bonnet, which will adversely affect aerodynamics, airflow, and might even affect cooling to the engine and the front brakes and the driver.
Well, they've had enough problems in that car already. Peter Cox and Jos Menton both complaining bitterly about the handling of the car, and even after this morning's warm-up they were stripping down the front end to change springs and dampers because they're still trying to chase something that will get them to get the car around the corner quickly enough.
On board with Collard. I was just going to say about that, it's odd because Reiter Engineering run the Lamborghinis in the ADAC thing, Kaufman's car. They definitely know how to make Lamborghinis jump up and down,
yes.
And they are struggling with that one car, aren't they?
Indeed. Looks as though we may have had an incident not seen by us between Jean-Denis Delatraz. In fact, it's Mike Hazlemans, isn't it, starting the number 5 car, and it says Thomas Biaggi, but again, that's Michael Bartels in the number 1, who have got themselves a long way down the leaderboard, 19th and 20th, where they should be really up at the sharp end of things. So we'll have to see if we can work out what happened to them in the meantime.
Well, let's just look at the race order. You're looking at the number 7 Lamborghini of Stefan Bucher, which is in second place, and it's 1.3 seconds and a car apart from the race leader. And you can see the GT2 moving aside, and that's all doubtless come as a relief to Stefan Bucher, because once you get into turn 1 here at the end of the straight, if you see Antony Kumpen just peeling off to the right of your picture, he's turning left, and that's leading him into this long section of the circuit where overtaking for the GT1 cars, although they have the power, is not easy because they have the extra weight, and the GT2 cars are a lot more agile, and you can be stuck behind it all the way up until the shell curve, which is half a lap. And that's what we were talking about at the start. That's where you get frustrated, and that's where you start to see assisted overtaking, shall we say.
Yeah, I'm already scratching my head and trying to work out what Stuart Roden is up to with these cars. He's on a slow run, isn't he? Why?
Well, unless he's got a very, 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 very full fuel tank, and he's going to go for as long as he can.
Well,
and then
yes.
Well, that doesn't work either. 2 pit stops, I just don't see it.
It's an economy run, but you've got to stop twice. However, Dirk Muller, meanwhile, has taken second place away from Zani in the Porsche Ferrari battle in GT2. We're on board with Andrea Bertolini in the second place of the 2 Play-Team Sara-free cars. The Maseratis run on behalf of a charity supporting children with HIV. And fine work they are doing there. The Pirelli shod cars haven't fared as well as the Michelin ones by and large this year, but they've had a strong showing here so far and running in line astern at the moment.
They are, as Graham said, running at the moment in 5th and 6th place, 12 and 11. It's still Antony Kumpen and
just in fact on that lap swap places, Bertolini getting past Alessandro Piaguidi in the 12.
Go over the line. Let's go back to where I was. It's Bertolini ahead of him. It's Jamie Davis in 4th place in the Aston Martin. Then it's Christian Montanari in the 2 Maserati, the Vitaphone car. Then it's Stefan Bucher in the black number 7, which I quite like. And race leader Antony Kumpen, after 7 laps, has got 2.3 seconds. The traffic has helped him, I think, on that last lap, and it hasn't really helped Stefan Bucher. Then it's going to come and go during the course of the race. Sometimes it'll work for you, sometimes it'll work against you, and you can just see there the 22 Aston Martin, Diego Alessi, moving up from GT3 into GT1 this weekend in preparation for his Spa 24 hours outing, making a good showing of himself. But you can see the slower traffic is everywhere now. It's all mixed up, and it's just overtake where you can if you can.
Yes, it gets a bit frantic from here on in, and even with that traffic problem, both Kumpen and Stefan Bucher set their own fastest laps last time round. Kumpen improving the race's fastest lap to 1:26.4. We're on board with the Ferrari, the Lamborghini driver now. This is Jos Menton, who had that moment out on track when his front body panel flew away, and a lot of hard work trying to get that car around the corners. I don't think I've ever seen Peter Cox quite so disappointed.
Well, there it is, minus bonnet, as we say. If the bonnet contributes to front-end downforce, and I suspect it probably does, having a nice flat surface on it, then it's all gone horribly wobbly for Jos Menton now, which, as Graham was saying, probably does make a whole lot of difference, doesn't it?
That was how it started. I was questioning Peter Cox yesterday as to whether the problem was understeer or oversteer, and he said, no, simply the problem is no steer. So that's fairly basic then.
It is fairly basic, isn't it? And as you can see, struggling in fact to stay ahead of Sean Edwards, who is still the GT2 leader, but only just, because already Dirk Muller having a look, didn't do it there, and he's going to have to sit and think about it now, because this is not a no overtaking, but a very difficult part of the circuit on which to overtake. Turning right now, heading towards Hasserode. I've seen it done here with evenly matched cars, but you've got to have some help, and Sean Edwards is not likely to move politely aside and give up the lead, is he?
He's not known for it, is he, Richard? No. Bear in mind too that the two Ferraris, and we see now it's Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, Ferrari, Porsche, are the two Ferraris are carrying success ballast and Bureau ballast as well. So a lot of extra weight on board those cars, which, even though you speak to the drivers, they insist actually it doesn't make that much difference. They can cope with it.
But it is like having a small passenger on board, as we have observed several times in the past. But Sean Edwards through the chicane and out to the back. Now this is where it gets dangerous for him. This run towards the shell curve now is where Dirk Muller will be thinking about it. There's two corners coming up. Oh look, he's not the only one who's thinking about it. Sean Edwards might be holding up this little train. He's safe through this little right-left flick shell, but now he's got the final corner coming up. I don't think Dirk Muller's close enough to try on this lap, but he may be positioning himself for another stab. Oh, and
a little look.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Did Sean Edwards just miss a gear there, or did it just break away from him in the corner? Now he's close enough at the end of the straight. It's a very difficult left-hand corner, as we've seen. It's very tight, hard braking, but Muller is close enough, or he was at the start, and here he's not going to.
No, we could see from the onboard shot there from Dirk Muller's Ferrari that the Sean Edwards Porsche had a good turn of speed out of the corner and was pulling away down the straight. So maybe that extra weight that the Ferrari's towing around is hampering it in terms of acceleration.
Well, strategy comes into play. We don't know how they're fueled, when they're planning to stop, what they've been doing with tyres. And as Graham was explaining at the beginning, tyre usage is an issue at Oschersleben, perhaps more than some other circuits. And it's all constant radius turning. You're constantly balancing the car on the gas. That means constant tyre wear on one side of the car. There are very few left-hand corners, aren't there?
Yes, and with all those right-hand turns, it means that the tyre wear is uneven on the cars. The left side tyres taking quite a pounding, while the right side tyres are largely unloaded for a lot of the time.
Yes, I think there's something like 12 turns and only 3 of them go the left-hand direction, and one of those doesn't really count.
Another look up on the tighter line, but again Sean Edwards closing the door as they go through shell, taking a bit of curve on the inside. There are some fairly steep curbs here you need to be wary of, but others are quite rideable. Now, pulling up alongside again, having another look, but again the door just closed in his face, and they're off down the straight for another time. The Corsa car running just wide there. Dirk Muller very eager to impress all his travelling fans who have come across from the Berlin area to support him this weekend. Only one round of the FIA GT Championship in Germany, of course, and so all the German drivers keen to show their mettle here.
Well, they're going to show a bit of Porsche metal in a moment, and I mean that in the metal kind of way, because if Dirk Muller isn't careful, he's going to get so absorbed in trying to find his way past Sean Edwards that he's going to find Mr. Zani banging rather heavily on the back door, and he's got a problem as well, and you can see it there in the shape of the Jimmy Bruni car behind him. So there's a lot going on in GT2. They're all very close together. Collard's right there behind, and behind that is I couldn't see which one is that, 15 or 16, one of the
it's Ben Alcott who's starting the 16 car, the JMB Citation Cup car, for the first time. Ben doing the qualifying and therefore starting the race this weekend.
Well, there we are. That's GT2, and it's still very close together. Up front, however, it's starting to spread out. Antony Kumpen's got a couple of seconds in hand over Christian Montanari, and it's all fairly steady up there. But these boys are right in the thick of it. Here comes Muller now. He really wants it here, and he's sizing that up every time. But he's just not close enough, and he's just not fast enough either, is he?
No, just doesn't seem to be able to carry the pace in the areas where he needs to, or to hang on down the long straight into the braking zones. And that's what he must do.
Well, this is... Oh, and he's up the inside now. He's on the inside, and it didn't work for him. He tried to go inside Sean Edwards going into turn 1, and he's come out of turn 1 a long way behind him. And you can see, as Graham said, Sean Edwards just disappearing up the road. But it's still the same order at the back. Collard just moving past Ben Orcourt. So this is going to absorb us for quite some time, I think. We'll take a break here. We'll be back in Germany, exclusively live on Men and Motors in a couple of moments from now. Yes. Touch and go there. Exclusively live from Oschersleben in Germany, you're looking at the 5th round of the FIA GT Championship. Up till now, the Gt2 Battle has been the most absorbing thing going on, but it's just been suddenly defused here. And Zani had a little tap during the break with the 50 car, didn't he?
51, yes. He's clearly got a problem inside the cockpit as well, because his windscreen wiper's going frantically now, and there's barely a cloud in the sky. Meanwhile, Antony Kumpen, who's on screen, leads comfortably by 4.7 seconds from Stefan Bucher and is lapping faster. Oh dear. That's one of the Ezell Chris cars. It's the 53. That was the best place of the ones. Marco Crissoni was the gentleman involved in that. So we can.
Look at this. There's a little all by
dear.
himself. He's backed it off into the gravel. So unfortunately, self-inflicted wound.
Yes, that's not clever. They've had a difficult weekend, Edil, Chris. They took the class pole at Monza, but they were strapped right down at the bottom of the class here at Oschersleben this weekend in all sorts of problems with tyres.
And it seems that they've had more trouble with tyres. The other car has made a stop, which we anticipated it would do early to try and get on some decent rubber, and it looks as if that one might have stayed out a lap or two longer than was good for it. Kumpen, meanwhile, is leading this man, number 7, Stefan Bucher, in the black Lamborghini, is 3 seconds behind him, and there is the other Edel Chris car. That is the 52 car of Paolo Roberti, but this is second place in GT1 we're looking at now, and they are just lapping the GT2 cars on a fairly regular basis now, so expect to see that happen often. It's overtaking, but it's not passing for position.
So Sean Edwards still holding up the GT2 field, and the rest of them snapping at his heels but not able to get past as yet. The 7 car looking very fine here. Stefan Bucher has really made a name for himself. Of course, he knows his way around here, having done World Touring cars and things of that ilk around here, and lots of experience, which must help.
Local hero as well, and so his fan base here is very strong. And the good weather, it was raining here yesterday, the good weather has brought out a few more spectators, but I think all in all the weekend has been something of a damp squib. This race last year took place in blistering sunshine, but we're enjoying the same European summer as everybody in the UK at the moment, which is it's Wimbledon weather, really, isn't it?
Yes. The Lamborghini, though, has done well this season. They've already won one round, and they're still carrying success ballast on the back of that. But the variety of cars in this championship is the envy of other series, with Maserati, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Corvette, Ferrari, Porsche, all out there. Wonderful stuff.
And this is Maserati number 2. As you can see, Christian Montanari started this car. He's in 3rd place, but he's lost a lot of time to Stefan Bucher, and I'm not sure that even Vitaphone pit stop magic can make this any better now.
No, and they'll have to work some serious magic if the number 1 car is to three-peat, as the Americans would have it, to get his hat-trick, because that car has already had a pit stop. It's shown as being Thomas Biaggi in the car now. We'll have to try and confirm whether they did a driver change in that early stop or not, but they're languishing down in 16th place. Now, we've got the 33 car in. That was the Carl Wendlinger car that we saw stuck in the gravel at turn 1 at the very beginning of the race, and also Jos Menton in to hand over to Peter Cox to see if he has any more joy wringing some handling out of that. In comes the leading of the two leader of 2 AF Corsa cars.
Get it from behind.
Get it in early. And there's the driver change going on as well. So Dirk Muller will hand over to Toli Wielander.
They were stuck for a long time, as you saw, behind Sean Edwards. They couldn't get past. I think it's a good call by the team. Bring him in, swap drivers, put him back out on a clean piece of track, and let the car run at what was clearly a faster pace. I'm just desperately impressed with Carl Wendlinger, who brought that car in 7th place after 17 laps, being dead last.
Yeah, but the car is still in pit lane, and they seem to be working on the rear end of it. Adjustments going on at the front of the AF Corsa car as well, so not just routine stop, topping up the brake fluid there.
Yeah. It's a big vat of brake fluid. Look, is he pointing at a leak, or is he saying no, that's all right? Driver is pressing the pedal. You've probably done this at home, and Tony Wielander's got his thumb on the auto start button, which means that when this car drops down off the jacks, the engine will just fire up. He's waiting patiently. He's taking his thumb off the button. He's got time to do his straps up. He knows he's going to be here for a long time. This isn't really what they planned, and this isn't really what they planned either, is it?
No, this isn't right at all. This is a shame for the Monza winners. Looks like is that a transmission problem, stuck in gear perhaps? We've got changes afoot further down the field. Remember, we were talking about what was going to happen with Scuderia Recos. Well, they've had their early stop as well. Driver change has gone on 62 and 63 as the stricken Aston Martin remains resolutely on pit lane, and I'm sure there's a very, very agitated driver in that car.
He's a very agitated Scottish driver.
Quite possibly.
Ryan Sharp, and there he is. Again, thumb on the auto start button, waiting for this to all happen, but it's not happening for him. And out on track. It's Kumpen, Bucher, Montanari and Davies, and Davies has got a bit of a problem on his hand.
Yes, he has. He's got two pursuing Maseratis ganging up on him, upholding at the moment Aston Martin honour in 4th place for the BMS Scuderia team. Jamie Davies did the qualifying and turned out a pretty good performance. They've not had the strongest of times in qualifying in this car, but they qualified in 8th place, but coming under immense pressure now from first one and then presumably the second of the two Sara-free play team cars, Bertolini and Biaggi, in fact sandwiched by the two Scuderia BMS cars, because 22 Diego Alessi, new boy to the team in GT1 terms anyway, is right behind the two Maseratis in 7th.
So it's 23, 11, 12 and 22, Aston Martin, Maserati and Aston Martin. And as you can see now, look, here with the circuit starts to open out again. This is where it seems Jamie Davies has got the performance in the Maserati to keep these boys, in the Aston Martin to keep them behind him, but the Maserati is much more agile on the slower parts of the circuit. They really do turn in very sharply, but bear in mind what you're looking at is a thinly disguised Ferrari Enzo, and it turns in like a Formula 1 car.
The two Maseratis carrying their 25 kilos of bureau ballast simply because they are Maseratis. The Jamie Davies Aston Martin free of any extra weight, so that may be playing into his hands as well, of course. Development work for both of these teams going on with Pirelli after Monza. They stayed on for 3 days for a long evaluation of new tyres, compounds and constructions from Pirelli, which seems to have paid off for them all.
Well, it's still Corvette, Lamborghini, Maserati, Aston Martin, Maserati, Aston Martin, then it's Corvette, then it is the number 1 Maserati. We suspect that Thomas Biaggi is in 9th place, and Jimmy Bruni in 51 is the GT2 leader on track now in front of Sean Edwards, and he's in 10th place. Sean Edwards is 11th. So that's how it stands after 19 laps and almost the first half hour out of our 2-hour race package this afternoon. There are compulsory pit stops to be taken. Everybody has to stop twice. Few people have already stopped once, as Graham has observed, and that includes our Scuderia Ecos strategists in 62 and 63, but we're still not quite sure what kind of strategy that might be, and they haven't told us because it's a secret.
Well, they are stealthing their way up the running order in GT2 as we focus on this battle still between the Aston Martin and the two pursuing blue Maseratis. Not able to make a pass yet, but you know they're eager.
They are right on his tail and up the inside. This is it, I think, now. A little bit of grass there as we come out of the final corner. Has it got the launch? Did it lose traction with one wheel on the gravel? Yes, I'd rather think it did. Jamie Davies has still got them behind, and he's just tried. Look at that. It's perfect manoeuvre from Jamie Davies. He's got his line. He's not weaving. They can't pass him there. They don't have the performance to do it on that straight, especially not with that dodgy launch. But now on the run. Oh, this is through Hotel. He's done it. He's done it. The track is going to go his way, though, isn't it?
It's going to go the Jamie Davies way. Yeah, he's got the inside line again. A little lock up there. And shall I help you round the corner, sir?
On the inside of Hasseröder, he's done it.
Got him on the, as you say, on the inside of Hasseröder there as they blind down towards the triple, as it's called, the next curve, a 3-radius corner, very complex one, getting gradually tighter and tighter with each element. Jamie Davies has had to give way on that place, and he's going to lose the next one as well now. So there you go, the two Maseratis ganging up on Jamie Davies.
We did say, did we not, that they're not faster, but they can turn better, and they've just proved it by both of them turning better than the Aston Martin, and there really wasn't anything Jamie Davies could have done about that, was there?
No, not a lot indeed. So the two play team Sara cars are now in line astern. Just the Edel Chris there car coming between them, 52, which has rejoined with Damien Passini now at the wheel, and behind them it's now the two BMS Scuderia Italia cars, Jamie Davies in 23 ahead of Diego Alessi.
So still Antony Kumpen, who for all his efforts in qualifying and in race leadership is getting nil time on TV as a result, which I'm sure won't please him, but he is, after 21 laps, 8 seconds to the good. What was that?
Well, does Jamie Davies have a problem? Looking at that picture on screen, he's fallen back already a long way behind Diego Alessi.
He's got Tony Verlander behind him, and the GT2 car perversely will be quite quick through this next section, and he's going to be jumping up and down all over the back end of the Aston Martin by the time they come out of it. I think he was quite close, unless that was just the 4 shortening. But we'll find out what's going on with strategy in the AF Corsa team. And Laura, as you can see,
we
has
saw
got
you having a
Muller.
big fight with the Porsche. What was it?
I mean, really, I enjoyed it. I mean, it is very obvious that the Porsches are much quicker on the straight, mainly due to you know, the heavy weight, so the acceleration is much quicker. We are quicker in the cornering, but since the 3rd lap I was having problems with my power steering, so that was sometimes there, sometimes off, sometimes there. Maybe you have seen it in you know, the inboard camera. So I couldn't do my stint because the power steering at the end went completely, and we had to come in and to see what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
There we are. So that's that
Go on,
question
say what you
answered.
were thinking.
It was power steering fluid going in rather than brake fluid.
That's not what you were going to say, though. You were going to say Dirk Muller's been breathing helium in that car, hasn't he?
It did sound a little odd, didn't he? Because that's not his normal voice.
No, Dirk, I think he might be overexcited. I'm
Might be,
sure
yes,
that he's still
hyperventilating,
hyper
perhaps.
after his opening stint in that car. He's done sort of 30 minutes in the car. It was an early stop, but it was a tactically driven early stop. As in comes Mike Hazeman's car, it says Delatraz.
Yes.
The back
That's
end of that's all
weaving.
over the place, isn't it?
That's weaving.
And we're not sure, because we didn't see the pit stop, whether it is Delatraz or Mike Hazeman. It said Delatraz from the beginning, but it was Hazeman who started, and it's still saying Delatraz, and we don't really know who's in the car, but whoever it is going to park it now.
Well, they've got a problem there with clearly with the car weaving. No serious work going on. It looks as though that one's done for the day, and that will be a severe disappointment.
And I suspect a legacy of whatever the incident was between that and number 1 earlier on that occasioned an early pit stop and occasioned that little message on the screen. So they're coming together with Michael Bartels in number 1 early in the race. And where is Michael Bartels on our leaderboard, or rather,
Well, Michael Bartels' car has made its way up to 8th place, and having spotted that Jamie Davis was running slowly, he has been in for a pit stop.
Yes, well, that's Delatraz getting out of the car, and
Yes, that
you
was
can
not
see.
pointing in the right direction.
No,
is
that's
it,
rear
Richard?
wheel steering, isn't it? You don't want that.
No, that's not ideal. Shame. One
No
of the
external marks.
stronger contenders.
Yeah, there's not a mark on the car, though, is there? Or is that rubber? Yes, just in
Maybe
front of the
just
wheel.
a little encouragement, I think.
Tap there.
Right, now here is the number 7 car in from 2nd place. Stefan Bucher has brought the car in, having got himself up to, or stayed rather, in 2nd place throughout. A good stint for the Lamborghini. There'll be a driver change here as well.
Christoph Bucher's
So-
already in.
Yep.
And look, Sean Edwards is making his stop, and he'll hand over now to Leo Machitsky. So we'll see how well that car holds on to its place. It was 3rd in GT2 on the way in, wasn't it?
Yes, Collard just passing him as he came into pit lane. So it's Jimmy Bruni in the 51 AF Corsa car at the head of GT2. This man in the red and white striped 97, the BMS Scuderia Italia car in 2nd place. Manuel Collard. Sean Edwards was in 3rd when he stopped, and should, I think, remain in 3rd. Because the Jarek Yanis now driven Scuderia Ecos car, number 62, had his early stop, remember, and was a lap adrift.
These things are just plain rude, these GT3 Porsches. It looks fairly simple on screen, and I'm afraid the television doesn't do it a great deal of justice. Look at Emmanuel Collard there working the wheel. But you go and stand next to one of these things in pit lane, and it's the GT3 that you can buy from your Porsche showroom. It runs in GT2 here, of course, which is a bit confusing, but look at it there. You can just trot off with £100,000 if you happen to get lucky on the lottery last night, and you can have one of these, and they are serious pieces of work, although they are getting their bottoms slightly kicked by the Ferraris once again this weekend.
Well, yeah, for the moment anyway. Let's see how it pans out over race distance as Christoph Bucher takes very little time to make his way, as you would expect, past Leo Machitsky, who's taken over the 99 Tech 9 Porsche there from Sean Edwards.
So we've got about half the field has made its first pit stop, and of those I think about half of them were scheduled stops and the other half were panic stops.
Well, and Stefan Bucher, the first of the leading group in GT1, which now still has Antony Kumpen at its head, with Christian Montanari and the Vitaphone Maserati 2nd, and then Andrea Bertolini 3rd. We've got a change too in the number 12 car. That's been in as well.
And just in the background there, here comes AF Corsa. Now they've tried to put their cars back out on track in clear air because they were being held up by the 99 Porsche. And guess who's in front of Jimmy Bruni now?
Well, guess who won't be as difficult to pass this time, because with the best will in the world, Liam Machitzky's not going to be up to the same speed as was Sean Edwards. So it should be a fairly simple matter for Jimmy Bruni to dispatch the Porsche at the first available opportunity. I can't see him being held up behind him for very long.
No tyre warmers in the GT class, so the tyres, when they change them, come out of a warm cupboardy sort of thing, a warm tent at the back of the garage. It takes a lap or two to bring them up to race temperature, but it can take even longer to bring the driver up to race temperature, as Graham was saying. So what you're looking at is unfortunately Leo Machizzi's stone cold in the driving seat still, just coming up to it. Jimmy Bruni right on it as the 53 Edel Chris car is in the pits. Michele Rugolo
will get in.
Yep. Strapping himself in there, off the jacks, and look at that, nothing, just in change of driver.
Yep, absolutely. Now they'll have done fuel, of course, but no tyre change. And Edil Chris, the black Ferraris, was a team that ran the entire Monza race on one set of tyres, and they would dearly like to do the same here, because there is a considerable time saving to be had if you don't have to do a tyre change at either of your two mandatory stops.
You're not allowed to change the tyres while fuel's going into the car, unlike Formula One, so you have to fuel, and while you're doing that, no tyre work can be done, so that the tyre change is a separate time element of the pit stop, and it's about 40 seconds, isn't it? So and we've got a long pit lane entrance here as well. Pit stop's going to be a long component of the race for everybody, and pit stop strategy in that situation can play a part. At the moment, I can't see it playing a part for Scuderia Cos, but we've got our fingers crossed on that one to see what happens. We're looking at the race leader at the moment. This is Antony Kumpen, 26 laps. He's still out there. He hasn't stopped. Neither has Christian Montanari in second place, who is now 41 seconds behind him, which is a big chunk of time. That is very nearly your pit stop. And then it's Bertolini, and then it's Diego Alessi, and all these people now are stopping in pit lane.
The question is, when will our leader stop? And there he is, Antony Kumpen, still hurtling around in his accustomed manner. He very readily took the blame as we look at the 51 leader in GT2 into the pit lane now. Jimmy Bruni bringing the car in to hand over to Stefan Ortelli, so that won't be going any slower when he goes back out, because Ortelli is a very fierce peddler. Kumpen very readily took blame for that grassy moment we saw in the qualifying report at the head of the show, that simply, he says, not allowing enough time for those cold tyres we were talking about, Richard, to get up to speed before he tried to nail it through that final corner to get on a really quick lap.
What I really liked about that, if you saw it in our little qualifying round-up earlier, was he got it wrong, got it on the grass, and as soon as he thought he was pointing roughly in the right direction, he was back on the gas but still on the grass, and he had another big sideways swipe and forced him to behave himself a bit more.
And was very lucky to recover it the second time.
Well, it's still looking very good for Antony Kumpen. Remember, success ballast awarded throughout this championship as a reward for doing well. You have some lead weight to strap to your car, and this car doesn't have any, so that's why it's looking particularly good here. I think it's being flattered by the fact that most of the people behind it have got some kind of ballast on board.
Yeah, real interest here between these two cars. They're not fighting for position at the moment. The number 2 Maserati there, Christian Montanari in second place, and Fabio Babini now aboard the car that Jamie Davis brought in. Remember, we saw him running fairly slowly into that pit stop, down in 8th place.
So it's Kumpen after 27 laps. He's got 43 seconds in hand on this car here. This is second place, number 2, and we said at the beginning that it didn't look to us as though history was going to repeat itself here for the Maserati team, and at the moment it doesn't seem that way. Thomas Biaggi is, and I'm going to say this, advisedly languishing in 6th place, because for Vitaphone and their number 1 car, 6th place is languishing. And yes, he says hastily, while Michael Bartels is at a safe distance. Kumpen, though, seems to be very much in charge of this race, and he's running at his own pace. We'll come back to it in a couple of moments. We've got pit stops, we've got GT1, we've got GT2, all exclusively live on Men and Motors. 3 laps in the pits. It's a glorious sunny afternoon in Germany. It's round 5 of the FIA GT Championship from Oschersleben in the heart of Germany. You're looking at the number 7 Lamborghini, currently with Bucher behind the wheel and currently in 5th place. Now, Stefan, local hero who qualified the car and got it right up at the front of the grid, kept it in 2nd place, and he's with Anne Law now.
For your home race, you don't look very happy for the moment.
No, not really. At the beginning, the car was really good. I had really good lap times. Then I started to overtake the other cars. And suddenly there was Gt2 in front of me. He was one lap behind. And he had 3 laps, blue flags, and he don't let me pass. So I tried to overtake him. He closed the door and he hit me. So I had a puncture after that. I'm really angry about that because he had 3 laps, blue flags, and he don't let me pass. So I'm not happy.
Thank you.
He wouldn't be happy, would he?
Clearly not. In a very loud sort of way. Not
Absolutely.
happy at all.
That's the first time I've ever seen a driver actually run the microphone over the limiter while shouting at it so loudly that he's actually defeating the object of the shouting. But there you are. There's the car, and it is still in 5th place. Bucher is about 13 seconds down on Thomas Biaggi, who is in front of him on the leaderboard, but not on track. As you can see, he's got a GT2 car ahead of him. And there's things going on in GT2, aren't there, Graham?
Well, there are moves afoot, aren't there? We've been scratching our heads and various other parts of our anatomy over what is going to be happening with Scuderia Recos, and the answer is at the moment they've got Jarek Janis in the 62 car up to 3rd place, where they're a stealth strategy early on, and Chris Niarchos is closing in 5th place on Leo Machitsky in the 99 Tech 9 Porsche to take 4th. So with Emmanuel Collard still owing us a pit stop in the 97 BMS Scuderia Italia car at the head of the GT2 field, things are looking quite interesting down in Stuart Roden's part of the pit lane.
Well, they certainly are, and they're looking fairly stable in GT1, as they have done since we started this race almost 50 minutes ago. Antony Kumpen, after 32 laps, is still in the car and still in the lead. Christian Montanari is still in the car and still in 2nd place. Andrea Bertolini is still in the car and still in 3rd place, but everybody else, apart from Emmanuel Collard, has made a pit stop. So
I'm just going to be fascinated to see where Thomas Biaggi ends up when the top 3 do eventually make their first stops.
Well, of course, as we've observed before, it's a long pit stop here. It's a long, slow entrance into pit lane, and it takes time because it's all the way before the first corner. So all of this part of the track on the left-hand side behind the wall is 60 kilometres an hour speed restricted. Then you've got the pit stop, then you've got the tyre change, and then you've got to come out down here. So it's a very long pit stop indeed. But I think that the lead that Antony Kumpen has got over Montanari and Bertolini and Biaggi is going to be good enough. It was stretching into the 40s last time we looked Kumpen has gone across the start-finish line. As you look at Collard, who is still the GT2 leader and still to stop on lap 31, he owes us a minute in the pits, and that's going to change his position beyond any doubt. And we're still waiting for Montanari to go over the line in second place. Kumpen's already done it, and Montanari is still not there, so it's well into the 40s, the lead at the top. So it's going to stay the same, I think, in GT1, and there is the GT1 leader behind the GT2 leader. How extraordinary is that? Look, Emmanuel Collard leads Antony Kumpen on track. So both the cars we're talking about there, both owe us a pit stop. One of them's going to come out further down the order, and the other one, I think, is going to emerge. 53 seconds is Kumpen's lead at the moment over Montanari. So unless they have a complete mare of a pit stop, I think this one's done and dusted, isn't it?
Well, we've said that before and been wrong, haven't we? So
every time, I think.
Keep our fingers crossed. Collard has just, I think, made way for Kumpen there, just moving over to the side to allow the GT1 leader through, as he should. Very experienced driver of Collard's calibre is not going to get in anybody's way, provided they're not racing against him, of course. If they are racing against him, then woe betide them. But Kumpen sails onto his 35th lap. We're 50 minutes into the race now, and no sign still of that first stop, so a long first stint from Antony, which is what he will have wanted. And probably fair to say that he's the quicker of the two drivers in the pairing, Richard.
But they are fairly evenly matched, aren't they? He might be just a little bit quicker than Bert Longin, but Bert Longin is close to him, and that's really what the team needs when you have a shared drive like this. But even Kumpen's laps now, he was going like gangbusters at the beginning, 26.3 his fastest lap, and it's the fastest race lap so far, but he's now in the 29s at the moment. Now that's traffic, of course, and I would imagine that 26 came early on when the track was clear.
Yes, I think too it's probably that his tyres are starting to go off a bit. We saw the front end just washing out a little bit on the approach to a corner about half a lap back, so it may be that the Michelin rubber is starting to cry enough.
Yes, the fastest lap was on lap 10, so I think that was probably just before he caught anybody up, wasn't it? Got nicely bedded in, and he had a little bit of pressure behind him. And Christian Montanari has just gone red on our board, which means he's into pit lane, and there he is with Miguel Ramos opening the door for him to fall out on the pavement.
Be heaved out. There he is. There we go. Complete with seat insert. Miguel Ramos insinuates his way into the seat. It's a tricky fix in some of these cars, and getting yourself in and out is not the work of a moment.
I've got to tell you that Miguel Ramos and I share a figure which you could describe as comfy in a fire suit, and the thought of him insinuating his way into anything is a little bit difficult for me to deal with. But again, that was fast, wasn't it? Field driver, no tyres, and that seems to be the call for just about everybody. And away they go, and that was a fast turnaround at the stop, but a lengthy pit lane entry.
Well, I think the teams have noticed, as we look at the 62 car, this is Jarek Janus making his second stop for this car.
This is a very strange
this is a tyre stop, so maybe they've done pretty much half distance on that first set. Most of the teams deciding now that over a 2-hour duration race they probably can get away with just one tyre change.
Well, that was a nice fast turnaround again for the 62 Ecos car, but I can't really see how this is working out in terms of strategy. But we've got another hour and 7 minutes on the clock, so there's plenty of time for Tim Mullen, who's the regular in the car. Jarek Janus, of course, we know is quick in anything, and he's been a very exciting driver in everything that we've seen him in this championship. But Mullen, of course, is the regular, and you'd expect him to bang in the faster laps in his stint, and he's out there now in the middle, so we'll see what occurs. But it's still Collard who leads, who has yet to stop. Stefan Ortelli is in second place, and he's quite a long way behind Collard, as you would expect, because Stefan Ortelli has made a pit stop. He's got 45 seconds gap between himself and Collard will be in the pits for just a bit longer than that, so it's going to change hands. And then it's Machitsky still in the Porsche with Tim Mullen, and then Christian Yarkos behind, and then Tony Vielander behind that. That's all going to change now as a result of that pit stop, so you'll see this car drop down the leaderboard. So it's pay your money and make a guess, really, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you have to know that the only 2 cars yet to stop are the 2 class leaders, Antony Kumpen in the 4 Corvette and number 97 Manuel Collard, are the only 2 cars in the whole field not yet to have had at least 1 stop. Tim Mullen, of course, with whom we're on board now, has just completed his 2nd stop, and so a very short tour of duty this weekend for Jarek Yanis.
Well, as you just saw, that we've been talking about cold drivers getting into the car and being easy to pass on their first couple of laps, and you just got a glimpse there of Tim. There are some controls in the centre of the dashboard there. He can change things like the ratio of traction control and the brake balance front to rear, and he can just twiddle the car a bit until he gets it exactly the way he likes it, as opposed to exactly the way Jarek Yanis likes it. And those are the kind of things that will make him just a little bit slower on those first couple of laps until he's got the car absolutely dialed into the way he wants it. And we expected to see Leo Machitsky get himself gobbled up, but it didn't quite happen, did it? It's occurred now, but it hadn't been the rapid progression past that we might have expected.
Well, Chris Niarkos still tethered behind him, but lapping faster and slowly chipping away at the 99's 3rd position as it is now in class, but not yet able to get up to make a real challenge. And in behind Antony Kumpen, we've got now these Vitaphone cars. Miguel Ramos, having taken over the number 2 car, has done so in 3rd place, P3 as the caption says there. So Thomas Biaggi in the number 1 car is in 2nd, Ramos in 3rd. In behind us we've got the number 7 car trying to make up places again through traffic. Christophe Boucher taking no prisoners and following just a couple of seconds adrift of Ramos in the number 2. There it is, that's the battle for 3rd place.
Somewhere in the pit lane though is the man who's just got out of that car with Anne Law, Christian Montanari.
You're having quite a good race for the moment.
Yeah, sure. We make a very good starting, and we start with the 6th position. Now we have in the 3rd position. So it's difficult because it's very hot, and we have a little grip, but I think it's normal for this track. But okay, for the final.
Thank you.
No need to bang your telly on top to try and get the pictures straight. That's the radio camera that's in the pit box, and he's already he's got a problem, hasn't he?
Crabbing down the straight, something seriously awry
into
there.
Pit lane he
straight
goes.
Into pit lane. Fortunate perhaps to have had that happen. I wonder if that was as Christophe Boucher made his way past, dare I say. Pure speculation,
just
dear listener.
sliding wide
Pure
at the back there.
But Boucher has, of course, gone through and taken the 3rd place.
It's
so
got to be a puncture, that,
it's
isn't it?
Corvette, followed by Maserati, followed by Lamborghini. Very slow. Yes, it looks like left rear has gone, doesn't it? From the way that's crabbing.
And isn't it strange that Maserati isn't in its usual pit lane position?
Yes, well, effectively they are now, of course, with the demise of Mike Hazelman's number 5 Corvette C6R, and this is being brought straight into the garage nose first, so it's something more serious. I wonder if that is... Anyway, let's not speculate. Anne Laura is in the vicinity. Perhaps she's remained there and can bring us some information as to what has happened to that number 2 car, which was, remember, in 3rd place when Miguel Ramos brought it in, having only just done a couple of laps in the car himself.
So number 2 in trouble, and they're taking the back off it to have a look and see exactly what kind of trouble. No trouble out front for Antony Kumpen. 39 laps just coming up to the hour. He's coming up to the end of his fuel envelope, and very shortly he is going to have to bring that Corvette in whether he wants to or not.
Well, he's the last of the men to do so, because Collard has been in, unseen by us, in the number 97 BMS Scuderia Italia Porsche, and he has handed over now to Matteo Malucelli. So we'll let that one unwind and see how it goes. There is the car on screen, GT2 leader, again just ahead of GT1. Antony Kumpen it is, who has now completed 39 laps. He's on his 40th, and sterling work by Kumpen, leading the race from the get-go.
And as you heard, or you may not have heard, Christian Montanari saying there in his rather frazzly interview, it's very hot in the car. There's not a lot of grip on this surface, and there are lots of complicated reasons for that, and if we get a moment we'll try and go into a bit of that. But it's very hot out there, it's very tough for the drivers. Kumpen is as fit as a race driver can be. I think there's probably nobody in the pit lane who looks to be in better physical condition. He is a man who clearly puts a lot of time away from the track into winning races, and that really counts. And here he goes into the pit lane now. This is his stop, and now it's his race is over. It's down to the team to see if they can do something about keeping him in place. And we've got a stopwatch running on just how long it is. Look, that's how far he has to come in. It's 10 seconds to the speed limiter marks before he has to slow down to 60 kilometers an hour, and then he's got to rumble all the way down the pit lane. And what are they going to do about tyres here, Graham, do you think?
I think they'll probably go for the full service.
Well, they've got the tyres ready, but everybody else has had the tyres ready.
Now, interesting, what they haven't got is any crew members standing by ready to put those tyres on. So let's see if they're going to leap into action.
They are.
Yes, they are. There you go.
Now, this is wheel change FIA GT style, and that took them about 40 seconds into the pit lane from the limiter mark and to the end of fueling, and it's about 20 seconds to do
Good
those
stop.
wheels. That was very good indeed, wasn't it?
Neat work by the PK car.
Still
team.
got a long way to go to get out of pit lane though, but Longin is now at the wheel, crosses the marker, and he's in the pit lane exit, but it's taken 1 minute and 20 seconds and it's still counting. So look at it, almost a complete lap as he works his way out and comes back out onto the racetrack. 90 seconds all but in pit lane for the full service.
So now, Bert, it's up to you to maintain what Antony has set up for you as we just tick over the halfway mark, the hour completed.
Well, he had a lead of about 1 minute and a bit, didn't he, just coming in? And I wonder now whether he actually is in first place, because I think that was a much longer stop. The Maserati boys saved the tyre change, but then they may have to pay that back at the next stop. They will have to change tyres, and maybe the Corvette won't. We shall wait to see, but it does definitely have to stop again.
Yes, it would be a result indeed if you get a GT1 car through the entire race on one set of rubber. That really would be a result,
especially here. So Bert Longin then 40 laps, Biaggi in second place at the moment, so says the timing. If you want to check it for yourself, www.mstworld.com. there's a link to live timing, and you can follow the progress of the race. You can follow your favourites in GT1 or GT2 if you wish, or you can rely on Graham and I to do the job for you. And I've got to say, I think you're doing spiffingly at the moment.
Why wouldn't you? Absolutely. Biaggi coming through a minute and a half adrift of Bert Longin that time round, so it's pretty much a full lap, isn't it?
Yep, it is a long pit stop, but we've still got another half a lap from both of these cars before we get the complete timing picture of their positions. Remember, they're separated on track by quite a distance, but they are close together at the top of the leaderboard.
And as we cut to that shot of the number one Maserati, just coming round the previous corner in the background, you saw the black shape of Christoph Bucher's Lamborghini. He's trying to chase down Thomas Biaggi for this second place. Currently they're lapping within hundredths of a second of each other, and the gap is about 9.5 seconds.
GT2 leader after his pit stops. He was for a lap, but then the timing put him back down, and it's Malucelli is in third place in GT2. Emmanuel Collard just got out of this car. He's with Anne Law in pit lane now. We can find out how his opening stint went.
You're having quite a good race so far.
Yeah, it was really good, except that at the beginning I wanted to be closer with the others to fight with them, but it was impossible. I could stay right behind, but I couldn't overtake. So, and now we are second in the race, and it's going very well at the moment.
That's what you were expecting from this race, or not?
Yeah, we expected to be in a podium, and for the moment it seems to be good. But we still have 1 hour to go, so we have to wait.
Thank you.
Oh, Collard not giving too much away there. I can give something away though. Bert Longin in the number 4 car after 42 laps has got quite a useful lead up at the front. They've done their pit stop and they've come out, and last time around I think it was showing something like 40 seconds. We're just waiting for Biaggi on this lap to come through. But this is Leo Machitsky you're looking at the moment, and we think there's a problem with the car, although I can't see anything wrong with it visibly.
No, it's been dropping down the order. There we are, coming into pit lane. It may just be that he's had a short middle stint there, and we'll hand back to Sean.
They have had problems with this car getting the setup right, and Leo Machitsky, I believe, has been probably worse affected than Sean Edwards has been, and so maybe that's why they've cut his stint short. But I don't think that was 45 minutes in the car. I could be wrong about 30, that.
Yeah, 35 isn't it? It's the minimum, isn't it? So let's say no, probably not. Seems unlikely. Meanwhile, in GT2, while we're concentrating on that, and it is fuel going in, so to start with at least it looks routine. Whether it continues to be, we'll see as the stop progresses. But we are seeing further down, as a little bit of exasperated body language going on there. This is the chasing Lamborghini, or is that the number 8? No, this is number 8 car with the missing bonnet, isn't it? The larger black hole in the middle would be a clue.
Yes, in 6th place.
In 6th place. Down in GT2, the 2 Scuderia Cost cars are now running in 4th and 5th places, and have already done their 2 stops, of course. So this could just play out in a very interesting fashion later.
Well, we shall wait and see, but there is a time limit on the maximum and minimum amount of time a driver can spend in the car, and I don't think they've done their minimums in the middle stint there, so we'll wait and see. So I think they might owe us still another quick stop, just a driver change. But
Ryan Sharp coming in the number 33 Jet Alliance car to hand back to Carl Wendlinger. A little bit of a problem at the left front there from the look of things.
He's saying no, it's all over.
No, something's broken.
They're saying don't go back out there. Wendlinger is ready to go, but he's listening to the team on the radio. But they were doing that universal sign that means it's all over. They're putting the wheel back on though. They're not hurrying, are they? They are not hurrying. It's all over.
So something was let go in that front footwell there. We'll have to try and get an update on that for you as well. Meanwhile, Christophe Bucher has almost cut in half the gap between himself and Thomas Biaggi ahead in the number 1 Maserati. It's now just 5.5 seconds.
Oh, Carl Wendlinger, what a disappointment. This team was so on the up after Monza. We were all delighted to see how well they were doing, and they were good in qualifying, fast in qualifying, as you saw if you were with us at the beginning of the programme, and now disappointment. And I think that's probably, again, the legacy of that visit to the gravel trap on the first corner has cost the team and Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp their position in this race. That's a terrible, terrible shame. But let's have a look. What have we got here? We've got Lamborghini still on the charge, as you say. Christophe Bucher is hammering after Biaggi, and when they come round in front of us again next time, we'll see if he's managed to get any closer to Biaggi. But he was a second quicker on the first sector, so he's going to be a little bit nearer. And he has still got a bit of bodywork dangling off the back there, but it doesn't seem to be doing him any harm at all, does it?
Note flapping in the breeze, but with that barn door sized wing on the back, probably enough down source on there to keep them happy for the time being. But Longin meanwhile demonstrates that he is, as you were saying, Richard, pretty much a match for Antony Kumpen lap for lap, and is doing sterling work out at the front. Thomas Biaggi not able to keep up the same pace as Bert Longin, may be mindful that he's keeping half an eye on the mirror as Bucher slices another second off that gap to Biaggi. Still 4.5 seconds adrift, but it's a battle in the making.
Well, side by side as he goes down the straight, Bert Longin, and watching from the pit wall with Andor is Antony Kumpen.
It's a perfect beginning of the race.
That was really good. I had a good start. I know we lack in power, so I had to do something special in the start, and it worked out fine. I really responded well to the light, and then I took a good lead. I came in with, I think, 46 seconds of lead. So if it stays together, I think we have a good chance to win here.
Thank you.
Antony Kumpen sporting a very unracing driver haircut there, as you can see.
It's a bit rock and roll, isn't it?
Right, yeah, he's more Belgian pop star than Belgian racing driver, but the car is doing the stuff, isn't it? Ooh, what's that?
Second pit stop for the number 50 AF Corsa car, Tony Wielander, bringing it into hand back to Dirk Muller. Remember, they did that early tactical stop, having been caught up behind Sean Edwards in the 99 Porsche early on.
So it's all about tactics in GT2, and it's all about getting your head down and your bottom up in GT1, and Bert Longin is doing exactly that. His last lap was 1:27, as we saw when Antony Kumpen was out there. He was 1:26 on his fastest lap, and then it gradually slowed off to about 1:29s as the tyres, we think, went off. But he's back out there now, and Bert Longin in the 1:27s, pretty much on the pace, and looking good in the lead with 47 seconds in hand on Thomas Biaggi, and they are on the same number of pit stops.
And Christoph Bucher in the number 7 Lamborghini here can smell blood. There's 1.5 seconds only now between himself and Thomas Biaggi in the black and turquoise Maserati ahead, and one car between them, which is a slower GT2 car to be lapped, and then it's battle on. In fact, they've already dispatched that car.
Well, they're closing up on GT2 cars. They're going past the Porsche, and then there's another Porsche to deal with. We'll have a little break in a moment or two, because I think we need to come back and see this battle develop as Bucher reels in the Maserati, especially here at Oschersleben, as much as any other racetrack that we visit on the series. Catching somebody is one thing, overtaking them, as we have seen, is something else altogether. Lamborghini plays Maserati exclusively live on Men and Motors. We're back at it in a couple of minutes from now. It's still a glorious sunny afternoon here in Germany, and it is still halfway through, just past the halfway mark in the 5th round of the FIA GT Championship. You're looking at the number 8 Lamborghini with Jos Menton back behind the wheel, still minus a bonnet, in 7th place at the moment after his second and final pit stop. So this car is now tired and fueled to the finish, whereas everybody ahead of him is going to have to make another stop. That includes the race leader, second, third, fourth, and so on. We've seen some second stops happening already in GT2. The strategy battle is developing there, and we will wait to see with interest how it pans out. But at the moment, it could go either way between Porsche and Ferrari, and it could go either way between AF Corsa and Scuderia Cost. Look at that huge silver duct pointing at Jos Menton there. The Riker Engineering crew have worked since induction on the car with a big hole in the roof and a big piece of heating duct.
Subtle it ain't, but it surely works.
There's nothing you can't do in a racing car with gaffer tape and tie wraps, believe me.
Absolutely. Second round of pit stops beginning for the GT1 cars now. Giambattista Giannicaro here, number 12, just coming into pit lane, and smart work by the crew to get the tyres changed, having left the same set on the first time round. They've gone for the fresh Pirelli rubber at their second stop. Just keep an eye on that one, making sure it doesn't roll away, clearing some debris out of the front radiators, hooking the airline out of the way just in time, and away he goes.
As you've seen earlier on, there is time to be won and lost in the pits. We've seen races won and lost in the pits. It has been, we've got to say, a Vitafone strong point. Everybody else, I think, has witnessed that, worked it out for themselves, and now there is a pit stop battle in a way that there perhaps wasn't at the beginning of the season. Everybody knows you can make 4 or 5 seconds in a pit stop, sometimes even more, and for a driver who's just spent half an hour carving 2 seconds out of the car in front to lose it and more in a pit stop must be particularly galling. So nobody can afford now to have anything but the slickest possible pit stop. And as Graham says, this car has been in now, isn't it? He's on his way out. Oh no, he's a long way down the pit lane.
Just coming into pit lane now. Yep. Thomas Biaggi bringing back the number 1 Vitafone Maserati. Number 2 we saw, remember, with suspension damage we suspected, and a long stop saw Miguel Ramos drop right down to 18th place. half a dozen laps adrift, but he is now back out and circulating. However, not circulating as fast as Christophe Bucher, who is currently quicker than anyone else out there, and with the possible exception of Andrea Piccini, who's really got a strop on in the number 11 car, the other play team car. We see Michael Bartels getting back on board.
Strop, did you see Michael Bartels' face
like thunder? It may just have been concentration, of course. He is quite an intense gentleman, isn't he, Michael?
It's all or nothing with Michael Bartels. He does this to the exclusion of everything else when he's racing. In those two races when he was watching and spectating, I've never seen him look so fit and healthy and relaxed and happy, but it's gone back to race face Michael Bartels, and it's a completely different personality, and he really does put on his racing personality when he comes to a racetrack. There's no two ways about it.
Traffic again to contend with straight away, and you've got to have your wits about you. The 52 Edel Chris car is the one against which he's coming. Paolo Roberti at the wheel of that one at the moment, and he, in his class, battles is behind Andrew Cocodi, who at the moment is not lapping as quickly as Roberti. So interesting to see how this GT2 battle pans out. But Michael Bartels it is who is on for this hat trick. But he's going to have to go some if he's going to chase down first Christophe Bucher and then Bert Longin, or as it may be with driver changes and fuel stops due for both of those, it may be the other partners, of course, again. Stefan Ortelli leaps out of the 51 car. That was the leader in GT2 when he brought it in, and we'll hand back to Jimmy Bruni again.
I'm just trying to look at the board there and see how much difference there is between him and the 97 Porsche, which is currently showing in second place, and it's not a huge amount, is it?
No, it was only about 10-15 seconds, I think, between the two when they brought the car in. There is Malucelli heading along the circuit now with the Lamborghini behind him.
He is the theoretical race leader with the Ferrari making its pit stop and now leaving the pit lane, but he owes us a pit stop, so and it's all going to change.
Indeed, and the GT2 cars piling up behind him in the form of the Scuderia Recos car of Tim Mullen, the Dirk Muller driven AF Corsa number 50, and Andrew Cocodi's number 63, a Scuderia Recos, which, remember, is now being chased down by Paolo Roberti in the Adil Chris 52 car. All of those chasing cars behind Malucelli have already done 2 stops.
And something else that's happened, and we haven't seen it, I don't know what's happened, but look, 99 Sean Edwards is right down the tail end of GT2 now, and he's a couple of laps adrift, so there's something has occurred there away from our sight, hasn't it?
They've had a third stop, which would seem to indicate a problem, and part of it may simply have been the Machitsky effect, of course.
Well, we'll wait and see how it pans out, but it doesn't look too good for Sean Edwards, who was right up there at the front, if you remember, early on doing sterling work. But now this is the leading GT2 car, the leading Porsche, but it's a pit stop to be done, which means he's going to lose about a minute, and he's going to try and hold it together a little bit tidier than that. It was all very intense for a second there, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a busy lap here at Oschersleben. Very little time to stop and think where you are and what you're doing, as he's about to be gobbled up by by Miguel Ramos, who will effectively unlap himself by 1 lap from the 97 Malucelli driven Porsche.
Through he goes, nice and easy. The GT1 cars are quicker, as you can see, but they've really got to pick their moments. We've got a glimpse of the race leader in the distance, Edil Chris in the pits, number 53 there.
That's Michele Rugolo.
Long way down the order in GT2, and it's not been their best weekend, has it?
No, not at the moment. Matteo Cressoni will take the car back again, and fuel going in, but again no tyres standing by. This is one of the teams that did threaten to run the whole race, as they did at Monza, on 1 set of tyres.
If anything can do it, it will be a GT2 Ferrari. They are famously kind to their tyres. If you go out the back of the circuit, as Graham and I have tended to do, you can watch them on the curves through the chicane, and you can see that the Porsches make hard work of jumping the curves, of using the curves, which you've got to do to get the line through there, and the Ferraris just float over it, don't they?
They do, as Bert Longin there puts a lap on the number 15 Maserati. This is one of the blue JMB racing cars, which run in the Citation Cup, a competition within a competition, if you like. This is for GT1 cars, but running with a control tyre. And the leaders in that class this weekend at the moment, Joe Macari and Ben Orcott in the 16 car.
And the leaders in the championship, Tom Clark, not here this weekend, and so it seems likely they will go away with the series lead in terms of points.
Yeah, well, as long as Joe Macari and Ben Orcott finish this race, either first or second in that Citation Cup class will give them the overall lead in that championship. They're a little bit miffed that it's a bit of a hollow victory because a number of the other cars aren't here this weekend. They're off racing in an FFSA championship race across in France. But nonetheless, it does mean that they will go away from here in the lead off that Citation Cup. This is the battle I promised you between the 52 Edel Chris car of Paolo Roberti and Andrew Coccordi in the 63 Scuderia Cos car. And Roberti is right up now behind and looking to make a dive down the inside. Can't do it there. Andrew Coccordi is not an easy man to pass. But it may well be that the Edel Chris cars are now coming good. Having had a difficult start, they seem to be behaving better. This is Christophe Boucher trying to make his way past both of them. Of course, they're locking horns already, and Boucher's attentions will not be welcome. Neither of them will want to give track position away to let Boucher through, but they should be getting blue flags from the marshals, and there is one to alert them to Boucher's presence behind. But can you see either of them wanted to hand over?
Well, I'm just wondering because the body language of that 53, the Edel Chris car is very aggressive, and Andrew Coccordi looks to be a lot slower, and I think he's going to be gobbled up. We'll find out in a minute after the break. We're away for a couple of minutes. We'll be right back here when we come back.
Yes, it was, I don't know, but sorry for Ferdinando because it's not good to check in the gravel, but this is his race. It was very hard. The practice was different, and today with the race is very, very long to improve the style of the driving because it's not easy.
Okay, thank
you.
promised you pit stop excitement before the end of this 5th round of the FIA GT Championship in Germany, and that's what we're getting. Stefan Bucher getting back into the Lamborghini. Got a good view from that angle, didn't you? The size of that rear wing.
It's enormous, isn't it? Fantastic car, the Lamborghini. It really is a treasure. It's a great one to see racing too. The Writer engineering people have put a lot of development into this over the closed season last winter, and the results are here for all of us to see now. Bucher bringing the car in from 2nd place. They'll quite possibly lose that to Andrea Piccini's number 11 play team Sarah-free Maserati, but that car owes us a pit stop, as does Bert Longin, who will have to come back in at some point to hand back to Antony Kumpen. Just a little over half an hour remaining. A lot of strategy still to unwind.
It is. Bert Longin in the number 4 Corvette in the lead by quite the margin again from this car, because it's been in the pits. It still owes us a stop at the front, so that will balance out. As Graham said, Piccini is third, close in third, but owes us a stop. Michael Bartels has been in and out several times, and we're not quite sure why. Jamie Davis is next up in 5th place for Aston Martin. Then it's Jos Menton in the bonnetless number 8 car, and then it's more Maseratis, and then right there, 97, Malucelli's 8th place at the moment, and the GT2 leader. But there's all kinds of pit stop strategy be going on there, and he has got to stop again, and the others don't have to stop again, although they might do. Sean Edwards has got 3 stops on his CV for today, as we said before the break, so there's been a bit of a problem there, and we've got a sprint to the checkered flag yet again, and a grandstand finish. I think we saw in Monza how close it can be on those final stops, so if you've got a cup of tea to make, I should put it on hold for a bit, because it's all about to happen here in Germany.
The two Sarah-free play team Maseratis in shot together there. The 11 car of Andrea Piccini, though, a lap ahead of the number 12 of Alessandro Biaggi, who follows behind, and currently running in 3rd place, though an artificial one, because he does owe us that pit stop, and he will want to make up as much time as he possibly can. He's only 4 seconds adrift of Stefan Bucher, but of course that whether he catches him or passes him is of little import, because Piccini is going to have to go back in to hand over to the other Andrea Bertolini.
So pit stop owing, and as we've seen, it can take well over a minute. Depends whether they change tyres at the first stop as to whether they're going to have to change tyres at this one, although if anybody can run a distance, I suppose it's Maseratis, but we've seen them all change their tyres at their second stop, and I think that seems to be the approved strategy for the weekend as we bounce through the chicane, make that right turn at the bottom of the circuit, head down towards the shell curve in the distance there, and we are 30 minutes of this race and 60 laps gone. The weather's held, the temperature's held, everything has been perfect for racing here. And as you can see, Michael Bartels is somehow or other struggled his way up into 4th place with 2 pit stops under his belt. That actually isn't such a bad position suddenly and unexpectedly for the number 1 car, is it?
No, exactly, and it is Bartels who will first profit from Andrea Piccini's stop when he has to make it, because that'll vault Bartels back up to 3rd place. Whether he can do anything about those cars ahead of him, of Bert Longin and Antony Kumpen during the number 4 C5R Corvette, or Stefan Bucher, who's now just taken back over, as we saw, the number 7 Lamborghini, remains to be seen.
Big gaps. Michael Bartels is only about 10 seconds adrift of the back end of Andrea Piccini at the moment, but he's got quite a big margin to Longin, and we've seen that number 4 car just built up an early lead, and it's managed to defend it ever since, and that really is very impressive work from the team and the drivers, and we're not going to jinx them with the commentator's curse with 29 minutes left on the clock. They've got the lead. Bucher in 2nd place has been very impressive. I'm sure the fans who've turned out to see their local man made good will be highly delighted to see how well he's doing in that car.
Jimmy Bruni, meanwhile, down in GT2, has just put in the fastest race lap for the number 51 AF Corsa car, currently 2nd in class, but should inherit the class lead when Matteo Malucelli brings in the 97 BMS Scuderia Italia Porsche to hand back to Manuel Collard for the final half hour or so.
Spit of flame from the back end of the Lamborghini there, and yet another good look at exactly how enormous that rear wing really is, and staying out there. Piccini had the option of diving into pit lane on that lap but didn't do it, and in fact is there racing going on here? Bucher in the Lamborghini.
The 12 car just unlapping itself from the Piccini car. It's now on the same lap as, but almost exactly a lap behind, of course.
But Piccini and Bucher are separated by the distance you can see there, but Piccini has got to stop, so there's a fruitless pursuit of Stefan Bucher, you would have thought.
Yes, and yet the racing driver in Andrea Piccini won't let him just sit there behind. He'll want to make the point that he could have passed him, and of course Piccini is on a pretty empty fueled car, so we can see that Stefan Bucher's got a full fuel load on board, and that's the difference at the moment. Meanwhile, Christoph Bucher
here for the team on his own soil.
Yes, even if it's really hard here because the weather, the condition is very hard, especially for the tires. Oschersleben is very small and hard track for the tires. We show soft tires, and in this condition it's a bit limit. Stefan had one puncture in his stint, and we lost a bit some time in this situation. So now I come back in second position, and we have to cross the finger to keep the position.
Thank you.
Lady race fans all over England fainting quietly away as we talk about the Vezer and crossing our fingers for the position. The French accent does it every time, doesn't it? But at the moment it's the German accent in that car that's doing it. Stefan Bucher behind the wheel, and he is 26 seconds behind Bert Longin.
Something coming off one of the cars there, a little bit of a nudge. Stefan Bucher is known for taking no prisoners in traffic, and this time it was he who was being passed, but not keen to let Piccini go, even though he must be aware that Piccini is that's not Piccini.
No,
rather.
it's not. It's
Sorry,
12.
It's 12, of course, because Alessandro Biaggi had already made his way past Andrea Piccini. Apologies. Piccini will be lined up next to go past, and having seen how Bucher dealt with his teammate who was merely unlapping himself, going for a position change could cause Piccini to think whether it's worth it or not.
You don't know whether Piccini was actually advised to him as the man behind him. Stefan Bucher, talking to the pits on the radio, may not have known that was an unlapping play team Maserati, and might have thought it was the positional Maserati, and decided that whichever one it wasn't coming through.
Absolutely. We've now got the same situation pertaining in GT2 with Malucelli still out at the front, and 8th overall is a good result for the GT2 contingent here at Oschersleben. We've got difficulties for the number 12 car. Their team manager has been asked to report to the race director, so whether they felt that he was to blame for that, as Piccini brings the 11 car down this long and sinuous pit lane entry, which mirrors the outside of the final turn here.
I'm imagining him being on opposite lock on the pit lane entry.
No, I think he's probably going for it.
A lot of steering wheel twiddling going on the way in, just before he hit the limiter there. There is a pit lane speed limit. It is 60 kilometres an hour. There's a long entry, as we saw earlier on when we were watching pit stops, and that isn't limited, and I think that he came into that as hard as he knew how, didn't he? But even so, I don't think it's going to really benefit them enormously, is it, when you look at the leaderboard and see the gaps.
Driver change and a splash there. Andrea Bertolini not taking fresh tyres, so going back out in pursuit of the now third placed Michael Bartels.
In comes the leading GT2 car. The pit stop owing is now paid, and we'll see what the strategy is doing, and it is going to play out pretty much as you predicted, Graham, isn't it? Look at that. It's going to be between AF Corsa and Scuderia Ecos at the top of the board, and Edel Chris coming into play late on in the race as well. So we've got 25 minutes to see what transpires there. It was a very quick stop though for the Maserati, as Bertolini went out not taking tyres and only taking a tiny splash of fuel, gave them a fast turnaround, but how will that benefit them? I don't think it will.
Well, let's see what position they can resume in. Manuel Collar is the man you want in your Porsche if you can have one. He's got looks like a set of those OAP sunglasses that fit over your glasses type visor, isn't he?
That's a Star Wars helmet, that is, isn't it? Let me see. Longin leads it 64 laps into the race, and he's got it, I think, in his pocket, barring mishaps, but he owes us a pit stop, and he's the only one now who does. The only person who hasn't stopped is the race leader, Bert Longin, and we've only got 20 minutes on the clock. And we saw last time out at Monza a late stop for Carl Wendling and a fast turnaround from the Jet Alliance team gave them the race victory. Is that going to happen for Bert Longin? I suspect as much, but Stefan Bucher has probably got other ideas, and so too has Michael Bartels. You're looking at him now in the number 1 Maserati. He's 3rd place, and he's just 3 seconds behind Stefan Bucher.
And lapping a fair bit quicker last time round, which may or may not be to do with traffic.
Excuse me, I'd like to get through.
Yeah, what traffic, says Michael Bartels. Make your own arrangements, I'm coming through.
That was very exciting just for a moment there, as Bartels has got this car in his sights. This is the one he's chasing. No mistaking the shape of a Lamborghini in the distance, because it's got a dining room table screwed to the back end. It's just a vast rear wing. He hasn't stopped. The camera's frozen. There is the Lamborghini, and again we've got another car in between. And it's the Citation Cup entry, who I'm sure will get a blue flag, although he probably doesn't need it, and step smartly aside.
Yeah, Ben Alcott there, having taken over the Citation Cup class leading car from Joe Macari, who did a shortish middle stint. First time this weekend that Ben Alcott's done the lion's share of the driving.
And as we've said, really all they've got to do is survive in order to take the lead of the championship going into the next round, which is the Biaggi, 24 Hours of Spa. We'll talk about that later on perhaps, but they're looking good for that. So mission accomplished more or less, with 22 minutes on the clock, and it's pit stop time for Miguel Ramos, and he should be handing this car no, wait a minute.
This was the car that had its long troubled stop, yes. Wasn't it? So it may be that they've elected to leave Ramos in, because no need for him to change, having already done one driver change during that lengthy period when he had what we suspect was a suspension problem at the rear of the car.
That is Christian Montanari in the car.
In fact, unseen by us, they have done that driver change back again, and the timing and scoring will catch up with it as he flips past the beam.
Well, he's got, oh look, race leader in the pit lane, hits the limiter marker and goes straight down to 60 kilometres an hour. But Longin coming down, he will hand over, we assume, to Antony Kumpen, because as Graham said, he is just a little bit quicker on his laps. There is Kumpen, he's the taller of the two, and out goes Longin, in goes Kumpen, and we are waiting to see whether he will get it out in front of the Lamborghini of Stefan Bucher, who's got other things to think about anyway, because he's got Michael Bartels tucked underneath the rear wing.
And it may well be Bartels that he has to deal with rather than Bucher. Bucher keeping the inside line through the first turn there, this new reprofile first turn, but Bartels desperately wants that place, and he wants it quickly.
Michael Bartels looking very racy indeed behind the Lamborghini, and we're now getting onto that more open part of the circuit where you can expect to see him take opportunities. Meanwhile, I can't see whether Kumpen has come out of the pit lane, but I think he has, and that means he's back out in front of these two, and I think he has just held on to it, so that's looking very good for them.
There he is. In fact, he will have joined on track behind them, because they were going through turn one as he was just getting ready to exit pit lane, but effectively that means he's almost a complete lap in the lead.
So the gap was 40 seconds. It'll be something similar to that when the pit stops shake out, and we'll see who's second after this little scrap shakes out, because Michael Bartels is looking very aggressive indeed. This is, well, he's got a GT2 car in front of him, and I think the presence of Sean Edwards in that car probably prevented him from going for the pass there. But what's he going to do as we come to the final turn and the run out onto the front straight? Favourite would be turn one, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, and we saw the leader in GT2 come in and hand back to Emmanuel Collard. Well, they've held their second place. There he goes for the pass. He's going to try and use the Porsche as a blocker, maybe. Three abreast as they come down towards turn one. Bucher's not giving this one up. He's still not giving it up. He's got the inside line, and Bartels has to do the sensible thing and give him best. These are two of the three German drivers in the race battling nose to toe-to-toe again in front of all their fans, and of course a huge amount of national honour to be decided here.
No, it's not toe-to-toe. This is £500,000 worth of carbon fibre against. Look, through on the inside in Hasseröder, we've seen that done before, and just as easy as you like, Michael Bartels goes sailing past Stefan Bucher. That Maserati turns so well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Well, it's on rails, isn't it? It's a very smart car, the Maserati, based of course on the Ferrari Enzo, and it's a delightful machine.
So second place now for Michael Bartels. We've written him off. Here's the replay of that moment in Hasseröder, and Bucher didn't really have an answer for that. Just enough room he left there for Michael Bartels. Come and get it if you think you're hard enough, and he was, wasn't he?
Absolutely, he is a tough man.
And that is the race face.
Absolutely.
The gap to Antony Kumpen is quite substantial. We'll find out in a moment just where it is, but we think somewhere in the 40-second bracket. But if that face has got anything to do with it, 18 minutes aren't long enough.
Yeah, I think the gap is going to be too much for Bartels to take on. Kumpen, of course, will have a slightly heavier car perhaps, but yeah, it's going to be over the minute because it was almost, if you remember, a complete lap when they turned through at the beginning of the last one. So there it is. That's what we're facing. The caption there showing you a 1 minute 18-second gap. Stefan Bucher having perhaps to settle for third now. Andrea Bertolini is a little way back but lapping faster. So it'll be interesting to see whether there's anything to be done there.
Corvette, Maserati, Lamborghini, and then Maserati, Aston Martin. Jamie Davis, our best Brit of the afternoon, is in 5th place in a number 23 Aston Martin, which is a nice thing to see. Obviously the circuit suits him. This is your race leader. He is 17 minutes away from a checkered flag. Watch it happen here exclusively live on Men and Motors when we come back after the break.
It's not easy out there because we know we had quite soft tires, so we had to keep them because we had to do a very long stint with the second one. So I had to go quite carefully on them, and I think we managed to keep them quite well. So for the last part of the stint, it looks good with Andrea. The car was quite consistent, but the grip out there is really, really low. Thank you.
The GT2 battle here at Oschersleben in Germany is fairly intense, pretty much as we predicted. The 51 Ferrari of Jimmy Bruni is currently in the lead from Porsche number 97, that's Emmanuel Collard. You're looking at third place. This is Tim Mullen for Scuderia Ecos in P3, and he is closing on Collard. The gap last time was measured at 1.2 seconds. They've got traffic between them, as you can see. That was the roof of Collard's Porsche, and Tim Mullen now has got to navigate his way round the traffic in between. We've still got this man, Antony Kumpen, in the overall lead of the race, and once again he's following the GT2 Porsche around on circuit conveniently for us, but it's nothing to do with race position. He is now 13 minutes away from becoming the fourth different manufacturer to win in this championship in 5 races. Lamborghini won the opening round in China. Maserati won the next 2 rounds. We saw Aston Martin win at Monza a fortnight ago, and we are about to see Corvette take its first win of the 2007 season. And I'm not going to touch wood, cross my fingers, or do any of the other stuff, because I think it's done and dusted now, isn't it?
You're a brave man.
I wish I hadn't said that now.
Brave man, Mr. Nichols. The car currently between the 97 and 62 GT2 protagonists is that of Ben Alcott, number 16, comfortably heading the Citation Cup entries this weekend, and well done to Ben. He's come on in leaps and bounds this season. This is a very new way of going racing for him, and he's had his moments of anxiety, I think, but safe to say this weekend he's really turned in sterling performances in the car, and given the opportunity to do more of the driving than Joe Macari, perhaps the senior member of the partnership, then Ben has risen to the challenge and done well. Meanwhile, that now leaves the way free for Tim Mullen to have a good look at the back of Emmanuel Collard's Porsche and see what he can't do about it. The gap last time through had stretched slightly because of that lappery from 1.2 seconds to 2.1, but Mullen, we hope, will be able to bring the fight back again.
Looking at the GT2 leader, second place in the championship, the 51 car. Stefan Ortelli did the middle bit, Jimmy Bruni did the start, and now he's going to take it to the flag, and he's got a very useful 36 seconds in hand over Emmanuel Collard, who has, as Graham just was saying, a couple of seconds last time around back to Tim Mullen, top of the Scuderia Ecos Ferraris. Then it's Paolo Roberti for Ezell Chris, then it's Andrew Kirkcaldy. I missed out Dirk Muller there. There's a Mullen and a Muller, and so there's a little bit further back to Andrew Kirkcaldy. So the strategy game, well, it's been different from every team, and nobody has really come out of it clearly as a winner, have they? It's more or less as they qualified.
Yes, they've just gone about it in a different way, one from the other, haven't they? AF Corsa are intended to be up at the sharp end of things, and of course they are. The 50 car is carrying a lot of weight, and will perhaps not be able to compete quite as strongly for the time being, and yet if either Collard or Mullen trips one over the other, it'll be Dirk Muller in the 50 car who's there to sweep up the bits.
Well, before this race began, AF Corsa were absolutely adamant that they were going to win this race, and Andrew Kirkcaldy was slightly less adamant but very hopeful that their strategy ploy would prevent that and enable them to convert their first pole of the season, his 10th pole in 2 years, into a repeat of last year's GT2 win here. But it doesn't look as if it's going to happen, but this looks like it could well turn into a Corvette victory, does it not?
It does indeed, and there is the expectant crew, the PK Car Sport Holland, the PK Car Sport team, and looking very, I think there's one at the back there, Richie, if you just have a
I don't recognise them now. I used to when I was younger, but not anymore.
It's been too long, hasn't it?
Kumpen Bartels, where did he come from? How did that happen?
They stealthed up again, didn't they? And it looks as though Kumpen is aiming to put a lap on Stefan Bucher, if I saw that aright. Is that the black Lamborghini? Yes, it is. Black Lamborghini just going out of shot.
It may be a bonnetless number 8 of Jos Menton, and we'll know in a minute when we see the front of it. It's not, is it? It's
it's the number 7 car, and that will mean that the number 4 Corvette has lapped everybody in the field bar Michael Bartels.
I still don't understand. They had trials, tribulation, Michael Bartels, they spent time in the pits, they lost a couple of laps, they had problems, and there he is in second place, and it's like conjuring, isn't it? They do a little watch my hand while I do something with the other hand out of sight. Look, there I am in second place.
Yep, as if by magic. And so it is. Stefan Bucher will be keeping an eye on the fact that there's a Corvette behind him with the lights flashing away. Antony Kumper wanted to make sure he doesn't get held up by Stefan Bucher, and Stefan Bucher, I hope, will be gentlemanly enough to make way, even though he is being lapped.
8.5 minutes on the clock. Antony Kumper, after 74 laps, has got a substantial lead, as we saw after the pit stops had ironed themselves out. It was coming up to 1 minute and 20 seconds, but that was before Michael Bartels turned nasty and started chasing after everybody, and he took the position from Stefan Bucher. But I really don't think, as Graham, we don't think that he's got a hope of pulling in 1 minute and 18 seconds. He's taken 10 seconds out of it, look, almost.
Yep, I think it's a question of Kumpen being able to manage the gap from the front if it ever comes to the point where Bartels over the next 8 minutes somehow or other trawls up to the back, but you can't really see that happening. Meanwhile, the gap between Mullen and Collard, if we go back to GT2, has shrunk to less than a second, so Tim Mullen really on it now. So, battling going on in GT2. Michael Bartels racing to the flag as always. This isn't the fairy tale hat-trick that he was hoping for, but given what occurred here in qualifying and early on in this race, this is very much a result, and there aren't too many teams here, I don't think, who can turn that much adversity into this much success. And there is the battle now, nose to tail, between the two GT2 runners looking for second place in class. Jimmy Bruni seems to be away and clear, but Tim Mullen desperately wants his second step on the podium to make it a Ferrari 1-2.
Well, Scuderia Kos played a strategy card that baffled us slightly, but it's put them up into a podium finishing position at the moment. Fourth place is Dirk Müller, 26 seconds away, so whatever happens here, as long as they stay on the black bit, Tim Mullen is on for a podium finish here. And to be quite honest, Emmanuel Collard's second place is looking a little bit shaky at the moment, but there's only 6 minutes and 40 seconds left to go.
And it would be a great result for Scuderia Kos. They've had more than their share of bad luck this season, both here and at Le Mans. And if anyone deserves a finish with all the effort that goes in, it's got to be Stuart Roden's crew. So let's see if Tim can make that happen for them. Emmanuel Collard, of course, hugely experienced factory Porsche driver, will not want to see his position lost, especially with Herzinger watching over everything.
Yes, Porsche are here in force, as you would imagine, in Germany, and Tim just taking a bit of grass there as they come out onto the front straight. But look how well the Porsche puts its power down. We're talking mechanical grip here. Those tyres just suck the tarmac up, and the Ferrari, nimble as it is, couldn't do anything about it, and he's not close enough going into turn one to challenge, although we haven't told him that yet. So he's a little bit sideways as he tries it there. Tim Mullen trying this very hard indeed on the run down to the chicane. This is where the Porsche gets a little bit wobbly as they go round the corner and back down towards the chicane. When they get curb jumping, the Porsches come out of that very unsettled. Hasseröder first, there's a long way to go, and he's got time to close up on the back. But Tim Mullen out on the back of the circuit, you might well find he's going to come out of this lap place up.
Absolutely on the limit there as they were fighting their way through that last sequence of corners. Collard still has the advantage, but only just. They both cleared the Edil Chris car of 52 Paolo Roberti, which was the car which they were coming up against. So again, it's a clean battle between the two of them, and see how the Ferrari closes up there under braking, just nosing its way down the inside, but the power of the Porsche again able to keep it ahead before they get into the next braking zone. Tim Mullen hogging that inside line, wanting to go up the inside. Here he comes now, he's got half a car alongside. Don't make the contact, stay behind, keeping it clean. Good stuff by both drivers there, respecting each other's right to be on a bit of road, even if they want to fight over the same bit.
Well, exactly what we predicted there on the run down through that McDonald's chicane. The Porsche got a little bit unsettled under brakes, and in the chicane Tim Mullen was right up there, and he was ready for a move in the shell curve, but it just didn't happen. But it was breathtakingly close. Now he's got to do it all again. Look how far he is behind now as they go on the brakes into turn one, and they've got a Maserati in between them.
That was desperately close. Tim, I think, had a better entry speed into the corner than the Maserati even, so they're just being a little cautious, getting caught up behind Collard and not wanting to have an accident there. Slowed him right down and gave Tim Mullen almost nowhere to go on the entry to turn one.
Stuart Roden's back glowering at the camera at this particular moment in time. But look, the Porsche alongside the Maserati, and now we're getting to the same area of the circuit as we just saw Tim make his move, but it is a long way further back this time through the chicane. There was a lot closer than this last time around because of that traffic. He's not close enough, I don't think, to do anything going in towards Shell, but he might have closed up the gap when they get to the last corner. And we have seen some moves going into the final corner.
And depending on where Kumpen is on his lap, we may have this one and just a couple more for Tim Mullen to make this pass stick.
Long way back, the camera makes it look further than it is. The onboard camera really makes the gap look larger than it is. But as you can see, nowhere near as close as he was last time, and nowhere near close enough to challenge going into the final turn. Put lighter on the brakes, easier in the corner. But now watch this Porsche. When Collard turns onto the main straight, it puts the power down and surges away. It's all grip and traction and power, and the Ferrari just dropping back again, thinking about the last corner. But look at the gap, it's not going to happen. Tim Mullen is mired in third place. And how bad can that be? You're stuck in third, damn.
Well, I think at the beginning of the race, if you'd offered them a third, they probably have taken it with both hands. But now that second is in sight, you know that third won't be enough.
Well, he's close again, heading out towards Hasseröder. We've seen passing here, but he's not close enough. From Hasseröder, they do this triple, which is a series of left-hand bites. Then they go down to one of the very few right-handers, a hairpin right at the bottom, and then back out towards the chicane. And as Graham said, we've only got 2 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock. We've got Antony Kumpen with over a minute in hand in the lead on Michael Bartels. Stefan Bucher is still third in the Lamborghini, and Tim Mullen is still third in the Ferrari. And I'm going to put my money on third place being the way it finishes. And
the bad news for Tim, if he's looking in his mirrors, is that there's another GT1 car trawling up behind the Ezell Chris car of number 52. Meanwhile, we look at Antony Kumpen there, comfortably in the lead by over a minute, as you say, Richard, and this one pretty much sewn up now.
Yes, Antony Kumpen now with 1 minute and 38 seconds on the clock, and 1 minute and 30 seconds on his last lap. If he was a clever driver, he might just ease this one off, but he's not, is he? He's still giving it beans around the circuit. But if he backs off on this lap, he might just see the checkered flag next time around and bring it all to an end, or he might be enjoying himself so much he wants to do another lap.
Yeah, and the Maserati ahead of him is the number 2 car of Miguel Ramos. Still struggling round, but not making any impression on the leaderboard this weekend, sadly. It was a very despondent Vitaphone crew after qualifying yesterday, when they really didn't get the rub of the green at all. And so a second place salvaged will be a real victory for them, but they'll be desperately disappointed, Richard, that they didn't make that hat-trick.
On the other hand, I'm looking out of the window here, I can see Maserati flags waving in the grandstand. The fans are here, and they are, I think, definitely pleased that Michael Bartels at least has managed to convert, as we say, all his problems into a result, and he's going to be second, which really is a result for him and the team this weekend. 30 seconds left on the clock, as you can see, and Antony Kumpen in the number 4 Corvette has got to do another lap. There he goes across the start line with just 19 seconds showing on the counter, and he will get the checkered flag next time around.
Which may not necessarily be good news for him, because he's got an extra lap to do, but it could be exactly what the doctor ordered for Tim Mullen and Scuderia Recos, because they still have that battle royal going on between themselves and Emmanuel Collard, just 0.3 of a second separating them last time past the timing beam.
I put my money down on that one, and I know I've been wrong countless times already this weekend, never mind this season, but I really can't see Collard giving that up too easily, and I can't see Tim Mullen really wanting to risk everything this close to the end of the race, when this really has put Scuderia Recos back on the map, hasn't it? Andrew Cicaldi took a fine pole position yesterday, and Tim Mullen is going to put a car on the podium, and that really is a reversal of fortunes for them. And what a change of fortunes for the number 4 crew. How happy were we last time out when we saw Jet Alliance, Aston Martin, Carl Wendlinger and Ryan Sharp take a victory in Monza, and how happy are we this time to see Antony Kumpen and his teammate Bert Longin heading towards their first checkered flag of the season, Corvette's first checkered flag of the season. What a delightful afternoon it's been.
And fittingly a Belgian victory just ahead of our Belgian 24-hour race, Richard.
Yes, these boys have got a special treat lined up for Spa, which we can't talk about now, but it's unusual promotion for a race team, let's put it that way.
Enough said. Rounding the final corner, down on to start-finish, and as the checkered flag is waved, there goes Antony Kumpen taking the victory. The team will be delighted. All American car enthusiasts in Europe will be delighted to see Corvette winning another race over here. And last time Kumpen put a race victory in for an American car was in a Dodge Viper in 2003, the Viper's last victory. And he'll hope that this isn't the final victory for the C5R.
I bet it's not. Here comes the GT2 battle, and let's remind ourselves it is Jimmy Bruni in 51 who leads, Emmanuel Collard in 97 who is second, and Tim Mullen in 62 who is third. You're looking at fourth place, that's Dirk Muller, or it was just now. And
now we've picked up the leader.
Now we've got Jimmy Bruni. Here is your GT2 leader through the chicane at the bottom of the circuit for the final time, looking ahead towards the shell curve, and he is just 4 corners away from the checkered flag that has already waved Antony Kumpen across the line. Mike, is that Michael Bartels just in front of him, or was it?
No, it's Ramos.
I just got a glimpse of Maserati, so Michael Bartels will be getting his checkered flag any time now, and the GT2 flag will fall as well. Yeah, Michael Bartels 1 minute and 5 seconds, so he took 13 seconds away on that last lap. And there is the checkered flag in GT2, and as AF Corsa celebrate 5 out of 5, clean sweep of GT2 victories. That's a fabulous second place for Emmanuel Collard in the 97 Porsche, and behind it a well-deserved and I think much relieved Scuderia Ecos back on the podium again.
Well, I think those two have yet to cross the line, so that battle may still be ongoing.
Well, I'm not being too previous, am I? Here's your race winner anyway, no doubts about this one. This is Antony Kumpen slowing down in the PK Car Sport Corvette, and I said earlier on, it sounded sharp, it looked sharp in the pit lane. It's absolutely a joy to be near it. Most of them are, in fact. The Lamborghini is another one that a special little thrill if you're a car fan of any kind. And now we've got checkered flags going on in GT2, and it's been decided in favour of Emmanuel Collard, and Tim Mullen 0.4 of a second behind in third place. So Scuderia Ecos will be celebrating that third place, I feel sure, because they've come away with a podium and a pole position from Oschersleben, and that may well mark a turning point in their season.
Yep, they will be happy with that. They'll have some points in the bag. Disappointment though for the 63 car. Andrew Kokordi just seemed to be struggling on that final session. The tyres maybe not to his liking for that last stint, because he was consistently a couple of seconds adrift of the other GT2 runners around him.
Tyre choices have been playing a really big part in qualifying and in racing this year in GT2, and we may well have seen a different tyre choice going on in the final stint, and that may well be what has kept Andrew Kokordi off the pace. There was strategy going on which was far too deep for us to fathom, I think. But it just, as Graham said, it just seems to have panned out, doesn't it?
Yep, they've all done very well, as somebody once said.
They've all done jolly well.
Antony Kumpen, best of all, a perfect weekend for that team. They qualified in pole position, of course. Antony Kumpen set fastest race lap on lap 10 at a 1:26.357, and they've won the race. What more could he ask?
Well, what they could ask for really, of course, is the podium, the champagne, and a quick speak with Anne Law. We're going to take a break, but we'll try and get a word with a very delighted Belgian winner when we come back to you in a couple of moments. Antony Kumpen and Bert Longin have won this 5th round. We'll talk to them and the rest of the winners after we take this short break. Don't go away.
With the old car, with the old lady. Wat up? Hey, Antony, gefeliciteerd. Wat up? Michael! Commander! Good job. Hey. Commander, yeah, fantastic. You are fine. This is your merit. This is your merit. Hallo there. Hallo.
Antony Kumpen and Bert Longin have just won this 5th round of the FIA GT Championship at Oschersleben in Germany. As promised, we have held them in pit lane with Anne Law.
First victory, congratulations, it was great.
Yeah, it was really good victory. We now go as leader towards Spa. The fastest lap in the race. We have the pole position. It was great, it was great. And Bert this morning, he did a few laps in the warm-up. He told me, yeah, we need to soften the car because for the race it won't last, it's too hard. And I think that was the key that we won today because we had such a good car for the race. And fantastic job, thanks.
Thank you. What about Spa now?
Yeah, for Spa it means we are under pressure, we are the leaders in the championship. I think it's for the first time that the Belgian team takes the leading in a championship like this. And yeah, the pressure is there, but Spa is our home track. We are used to drive there. The two other drivers are also very experienced. And I think stay with the foot on the ground and be concentrated. That will be the message.
Thank you, congratulations.
I don't think it's giving too much away about their Belgian promotional strategy to say that those two would look better without the racing overalls, and I mean that in a good way.
I sincerely hope you do. And here is the winning car from this afternoon at the 5th round, as said Richard, at Oschersleben here in Germany. It's a hop back home for them to Belgium, and for us too to head over to Spa. And what a mouth-watering race that is going to be. Lots of additional drivers coming in to bolster the field, additional entries too, and some top names coming to join us at Spa. We've got two more Belgian drivers to pair up with, Bert Longin here and Antony Kumpen, to make an all-Belgian effort in that car. We've got additional factory Porsche drivers coming in. We've got additional factory Ferrari drivers coming in.
And we've got Ferrari drivers in pit lane. Our GT2 winners are with Anne Law. Let's see if we can get a word with them before they rush off to the press conference, as they are bound to do. But hopefully she's managed to haul them to one side, and with a bit of luck we'll hear just how their strategy worked out, because it was a very different thing for us to watch this afternoon.
Second victory in a row, congratulations.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I make a good start, and after one of the Aston Martin span in front of me, so I back off, I went 5th. So I managed to be again on the lead before the first stint, and after the car I was down to the Mr. Rotelli. Again, we just he drove like amazing with some problem. And also I have to say, you know, when we came here the first day and I didn't know the circuit, he said to me some tricky points where the race it can be you can make a big difference, and it happened.
Thank you. What do you expect for the championship now?
I think it's first of all it's it's just too early. I mean, I don't really think about the championship, and I don't want to think about it. What is good is Corsa is pulling now away of everybody on the points championship for both of us. I mean, it's been a fantastic weekend, and we are just focused on that. On the other hand, we made a good job on the setup with my engineers. With the Pirelli tires, the Michelin tires, we were very good, and that's the only thing. The others, they were really strong, and we were not sure about the strategy from the others, and we were just having the best car and the best strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that Stefan Ortelli has just put his finger on the whole afternoon, really. There was an awful lot of strategy going on. We weren't sure who was doing what or why in some cases, but in the end it came down to that simple fact that they had the best setup car, and they pulled off the victory. It wasn't a massive lead, but there it is. They are again the winners 5 times in a row now. That's every single round of this championship has gone to AF Corsa, and they've got every reason to look delighted. They've now got the worst problem in the world. Of course, they've got 2 cars pretty close in the championship fighting each other for the title instead of fending off the rest of the field, and they've got to make a decision, really, haven't they?
Well, at some point, yes, I'm sure they'll be happy to let the 2 cars sort it out amongst themselves, providing that they do it fairly. Here are your Citation Cup winners. Delighted Ben Orcott on the right of your picture, and Joe Macari, the shorter gentleman, on your left. And congratulations to them. They'll leave here as the leaders of the Citation Cup class.
And out come your Lamborghini crew. They finished in third place in GT1. Stefan Bucher. It's already Christophe Bouchou. We've already got the rest of the finishers in the top 3 coming out onto the podium. Second place, Michael Bartels and Thomas Biaggi. Stefan Rettel in the middle of the picture there, the man who organises all of this. He looks really pleased to see Corvette winning, but not as pleased as these 2 are up onto the top step of the podium for the first time together. Antony Kumpen and Bert Longin. I don't think I'd recognise the Belgian national anthem. Never heard it before. It's a long time since it's been played in this championship, that's for sure. And it's a long. I'm just trying to think back. When did we see a Corvette win a race here? What was it? I'm trying to think where it was now.
In Oschersleben?
No, not
in the series.
In the series, yes.
Goodness. That's a good one.
It's one of those questions I wish I hadn't mentioned now, because I don't know the answer, and you should never do that unless you can answer the question yourself, should you? But it's trophy time, and the Lamborghini crew, I think they did quite nicely, thank you, would you say, to bring that home in third place.
Yes, again, just struggling in the final session, not able to sustain the speed that they'd shown in parts 1 and 2, as it were. Here is Thomas Biaggi with a huge smile, taking his trophy. Michael Bartels looking pleased, but would just have loved to have been on that top step to make it 3 out of 3.
He was delighted though, hugged the crew when he got out of the car and then went straight over and congratulated these 2, which was a very sporting gesture from Michael Bartels. He was quite clearly very delighted for Bert Longin and for Antony Kumpen, even though, as I think Antony Kumpen said, it puts them on the top step of the championship as well, although only by a single point from Thomas Biaggi.
Yes, it's all very close. Whatever your feelings are about success ballast, it does have the desired effect in as much as you get variety.
Stepping forward for the benefit of the photographers now, all of whom are keeping a safe distance because they've seen this bit before, haven't they?
Yes, and it gets awfully messy.
Yes, the champagne is ready. Normally on a podium you'd expect 3 people, 3 bottles of champagne. Sports car racing,
it's a bit different, isn't it?
You've got 6 bottles of champagne plus the Citation Cup winners, so there's 8 bottles of champagne up there, and that really does mean that there's quite a lot of it being sprayed about. All our officials and dignitaries boys are moving very circumspectly away from the podium now. Run away!
Running for cover would be the other way of putting it.
Absolutely, yes. Look, here we go. Run away, and it's all going to get...
Favourite sport usually is to try and spray the pit girls as well, but they've made their escape, slammed the door, and nobody gets out of here until the champagne's all gone. Ben Alcott's got an eyeful from the look of it. Although it'll sting, I'm sure he won't mind too much afterwards. They'll be very pleased with that victory. JMB Racing fielding 2 of the Maseratis in that class this weekend and coming away with plenty of points for the team.
Yes, going home with the championship lead makes the whole trip worthwhile, doesn't it? And these boys, well, you don't need us to tell you how happy Bert Langin and Antony Kumpen are about that. And Michael Bartels is well delighted with his second place, as we've said. And here's the official result. Not that you needed to be told, but look at that, a minute in hand over Michael Bartels. That's fairly convincing stuff. Although they will have the ballast next time, won't they?
Yes, they'll have some success ballast at the next 2-hour race, but of course things are slightly different in terms of ballast carrying for the Spa 24 Hours, where things are done in a different way from the rest of the championship.
We will be dealing with the Spa 24 Hours here on Men and Motors, of course. So you'll be able to see that. It does go for 24 hours. We won't, because Graham and I aren't that strong, are we? But we'll bring you the highlights of that. We'll make sure we don't miss any of the action. It's the last weekend in July, 28th and 29th. So make a note of that on your diary. Make sure you're back with us. We'll be exclusively live on Men and Motors for that. And not Silverstone, it's Spa. We'll see you next time. But from Graham and me, goodbye.